Chapter 2998. 10 years passed quickly. In these 10 years, many things happened in the Yuan sect. Among the younger generation, there were many great ancestor Zhu Xian, Xian Zhuyin, Jintian Xianyue, Devi Yuran, Xiang Xiaoyuan, etc. This was because Xian Failing and the other deputy pavilion masters had discussed and decided to take out many precious cultivation resources from the sect to give unreserved support to the cultivation of the younger generation. Each of the Zhu, Xie great ancestors received many times more cultivation resources than before. They also received rare and precious medicines and spirit pills. Apart from that, the restrictions on the Book Mountain had also been lifted. Any disciple that had attained the Tao of Eternity could freely enter and exit the mountain. On the other hand, the people of the older generation were not stingy with their cultivation of the younger generation. They would often set up dojos to impart knowledge and answer questions. This was why, in these years, there were a bunch of young people who have proven themselves to be undying. The price that the Yuan sect had to pay for this was close to 20% of their wealth that they had accumulated over countless years. Of course, no one cared. Xian Failing and the others were well aware that the world was about to fall into chaos. Before Yu Beihai could attain eternity, a great war would definitely break out between the four ancestral halls. This was not the time to be stingy with cultivation resources. At the same time, there were many Nirvana God Realm cultivators who had experienced rapid growth in their cultivation over the years. Early Nirvana God Realm to mid-Nirvana God Realm, mid-Nirvana God Realm to late Nirvana God Realm, late Nirvana God Realm to peak Nirvana God Realm. The speed of the transformation and the number of people advancing could be said to be shocking. This was not because the Yuan sect had a strong foundation, but because Lin Sun had given them too much power of sequence back then. Thousands of streams of power of sequence smashed down, resulting in such a spectacle. Of course, this was also closely related to the Nirvana God Realm existences themselves. Many old monsters have been cultivating in this realm for countless years, ranging from thousands of years to tens of thousands of years. Their foundation had been tempered to a terrifying level. The reason why they could not break through to the next realm was because they lacked sufficient order power. With the order power that Lin Sun gave them, it could be said that it was like a sweet dew from the heavens, allowing the cultivation that they had accumulated for a long time to be completely released and improved. Xian Fei Ling had done some calculations. In just 10 years, there were 59 more mid-Nirvana God Realm cultivators, 32 more late Nirvana God Realm cultivators, 13 more late Nirvana God Realm cultivators, and 4 more peak Nirvana God Realm cultivators. What made Xian Failing and the rest even more gratified was that in 10 years, Xiao Wenyuan had achieved transcendence. In just 10 years, there had been such a shocking change in the Yuan Church. This had even exceeded many people's expectations. What no one knew was that in the past 10 years, Lin Sun had achieved a new breakthrough from the early stage of Transcendent Realm and entered the middle stage of Transcendent Realm. There is no 60-year cycle in the mountains. One does not know the year. Another 10 years passed in a flash. Buzz. On this day, in Lin Sun's cave residence, the obscure power of order hummed and produced waves of ripple-like fluctuations. Above Lin Sun's cross-legged meditating figure, the immortal rules were rising and condensing into a big abyss. The aura of the rules alone was already much more powerful than that of an ordinary 9th rank heaven rank. It was truly because he'd refined and absorbed too much energy of order throughout the years, and all of it had transformed into a part of the eternal laws that he possessed. At this moment, as he circulated his cultivation, the abyss formed from the eternal laws revolved, and it truly seemed capable of devouring the energy of order in the world. That aura was extremely similar to the Nirvana order, as if it was born to restrain and obliterate all order power in the world. After a long time, Lin Sun opened his eyes, and the mysterious luster of the Great Way was reflected in the depths of his pupils. It was so deep that it made one's heart palpitate. 26 years, and I've only refined 30% of the Nirvana order, Lin Sun murmured. For 26 years, he cultivated day and night, refining the nirvana order while refining his cultivation. Until now, his cultivation was still at the middle stage of transcendent realm, but it was not far from the late stage. As for the nirvana order power, he had refined about 30% of it. It seemed like he'd made rapid progress, but this was the result of more than 20 years of painstaking effort and the full cooperation of his main body and the 5 Tao forms. Based on this situation, Lin Sun doubted whether he could completely refine the nirvana order before the disaster broke out. However, although he'd only refined 30% of the nirvana order power, Lin Sun could still clearly feel that his immortal rules had undergone an earth-shaking transformation. He once tested it with the purple-green gourd. He didn't need to rely on the nirvana order at all. With his own immortal rules alone, he could easily suppress this pair of rare 9th grade heaven-level sequences. When Lin Sun used the same method to fight against the god-level order power, Absolute Beginning, there were faint signs that it was on par with it. It should be noted that the Absolute Beginning order was obtained by Lin Sun in the Sky Demon territory. At that time, it seemed to be subdued by Lin Sun's own immortal rules, but in reality, the Absolute Beginning order felt the nirvana aura contained in his immortal rules and voluntarily chose to submit. But it was different now. Lin Sun tested it purely with the power of the immortal rules, and there were faint signs that it was not weaker than the Absolute Beginning order. This undoubtedly meant that the immortal rules he'd mastered now had exceeded the scope of 9th grade heaven level. It had begun to approach the god-level order power. This transformation could naturally be said to be world-shocking. As far as Lin Sun knew, the immortal rule's power mastered by the transcendent realm great perfection was at most comparable to the rare 9th grade heaven level order power. For example, the old guys like Fu Wenli, Zhu Wenheng, and Qi Shaoyan who were killed by him previously had similar immortal rules power. But now, Lin Sun only had transcendent realm intermediate cultivation base. But his immortal rules had already transformed to the point of approaching the god-level order. In the entire world, there was probably no one else like him. Even Wu Shuang said that when facing Lin Sun's immortal rules, she felt an instinctive suppression, like a subject facing a king. After thinking for a long time, Lin Sun shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He got up and started cooking. Not long after, a table of sumptuous delicacies was prepared, and Xie Zhi was released from the abyssal sword cauldron. Xie Zhi naturally sat at the table, picked up the chopsticks, and started enjoying the food. Lin Sun smiled slightly and sat opposite her. The two chatted as they ate. In other words, Lin Sun was talking, and Xie Zhi was listening. Occasionally, she would respond to Lin Sun with a hum. During the years of seclusion, whenever Lin Sun had free time, he would eat and talk with Xie Zhi. It could be considered as taking a break and relaxing. Originally, Lin Sun was a little worried that Xie Zhi would feel bored. But later, he realized that as long as there was food and she could be by his side, Xie Zhi would not have any other thoughts. After eating, Lin Sun said, "Let's try again." Xie Zhi nodded and stood up. Clang! A spear appeared in her fair and slender hand, and she stabbed it directly at Lin Sun. It was simple and direct, but it was unimaginably sharp. Lin Sun stood still, and the immortal rules circulated on his body. When the spear stabbed at him, it suddenly produced a violent wave of Taoist light, and a small amount of power of rules splashed out like blooming fireworks. But it was terrifying. With Lin Sun's cultivation base, even if someone in the same realm attacked with all their strength, they would not be able to break through his defensive power of rules. But Xie Zhi's spear shook Lin Sun's defensive power. Although the extremely sharp spear was blocked by only an inch, it still made Lin Sun's eyes brighten, and he said, "You have made a lot of progress since last time." Xie Zhi put away the spear and said seriously, "Lin Sun, you have not made any progress since last time." 3 months ago, the two had such a test. It was based on the last experience that made Xie Zhi make such an evaluation. It could be said that she was very serious. Lin Sun was stunned and said with a wry smile, "How can I compare with you? For him, it was impossible to improve his strength much in 3 months. But it was different for Xie Zhi. The eternal night, divine emperor sealed all his cultivation power in Xie Zhi's body. In these years, as long as Xie Zhi slept, she could easily refine that power for her own use. It was difficult for her not to improve her strength. In short, Xie Zhi was not so much cultivating, but refining the power of her own body and restoring the cultivation she had in the past step by step. In just a few decades, Xie Zhi's cultivation had been restored to the existence comparable to the transcendent realm early stage. Moreover, there were 3 taboo forces of karma, fate, and time sealed in her body. Now, Xie Zhi had mastered the power of time like Lin Sun. According to Lin Sun's speculation, when Xie Zhi restored the power of the eternal realm, it was very likely that there would be a complete transformation, and she could master the taboo forces of karma and fate in one fell swoop. At that time, Xie Zhi's combat power was destined to be immeasurable. I have realized a lot of mysteries recently. It is very likely that I will sleep for many years. When I wake up next time, we will fight again. Xie Zhi said. Lin Sun couldn't help asking, how long will it take? Xie Zhi's beautiful eyebrows frowned. After thinking for a long time, she replied seriously, at least 30 years. Although Lin Sun was a little reluctant, he still smiled and said, it's not too long. I will cook for you then. Xie Zhi nodded, took Lin's right hand, pressed it on her head, and rubbed it. In the future, you should take the initiative to touch my head. You have always liked it like this since we were little. Well, I like it too. Her appearance was so beautiful that even the fairies in the world would be dwarfed in front of her. Her voice was also very pleasant, like the sound of nature. Standing there, her slender and graceful figure was only half a head shorter than Lin Sun. Her body exuded a beautiful aura, which amazed and shocked people all the time. Lin Sun often felt ashamed of his inferiority when he accompanied her day and night. He even thought about how he could have such a beautiful woman accompany him all the time. At this time, touching her soft black hair and looking at her beautiful white face, Lin Sun's heart trembled. He couldn't help kissing her smooth forehead gently. Xie Zhi's delicate body stiffened. She seemed to be caught unprepared. Her clear and bright eyes widened, and she was stunned. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel hot. He coughed and said, well, I can't help it. You are not angry, right? There was a sense of guilt in his words. Xie Zhi's fair, delicate, and beautiful face silently revealed a brilliant smile, and at this instant, everything in the surroundings seemed to be dim and lusterless. Can't help it? That's a nice word. P.S. 1. I will update tomorrow. 2. On the first day of the month, I want a guaranteed monthly ticket. 3. Goldfish guarantees that the number of updates and outbursts this month will be more than last month. Chapter 2999. Xie Zhi smiled and returned to the abyssal sword cauldron. It was the first time Lin Sun saw Xie Zhi smile for so long, and it was so bright. He rubbed his mouth with his fingers, startled for a moment, then smiled. Sooner or later, he would marry Xie Zhi in a grand manner. For cultivators, seclusion is a common thing. The higher one's cultivation base is, the longer they will need to go into seclusion. The shortest is dozens of years, and the longest is thousands of years. In seclusion, time passed quickly. In the 36th year of Lin Sun's seclusion, a shocking event happened. The 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven united and formed the 10-clan war alliance. The first immortal giant, Wang Zhongtian, was the leader of the Wang family, and the other 9 patriarchs were the deputy leaders. The establishment of the 10-clan war alliance made the situation in the world turbulent. After the establishment of the 10-clan war alliance, many immortal emperor clans in the 7th and 8th heaven received decrees personally written by Wang Zhongtian. The content of the decree was very simple. They could choose to attach themselves to the 10-clan war alliance and be used by it, or they could choose to be enemies of the 10-clan war alliance. A stone caused 1,000 ripples. In the face of the aggressive and undisguised threat of the Ten Clan War Alliance, almost all the immortal Emperor clans who received the decree chose to surrender. It was said that in just 3 months, hundreds of immortal Emperor clans in the 7th and 8th heavens surrendered and attached themselves to the Ten Clan War Alliance. This news spread throughout the world, making the atmosphere in the heavens of the entire eternal world tense. This world is about to be stormy. Some old people were worried. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the establishment of the Ten Clan War Alliance was definitely going to stir up a monstrous war. Otherwise, it would be impossible to mobilize so many people. The most terrifying thing was that existences like the 10 immortal giants stood high above the 8th heaven. Putting aside the 9th heaven, which was like a legendary land, the 10 immortal giants' might was the greatest in the entire eternal true world. It was not an exaggeration to say that any one of them was like a supreme overlord. Now, these 10 immortal giants united and formed the War Alliance. This was enough to show that the force they were going to deal with was definitely not ordinary. They have completely broken off their relationship with the Yuan sect and decided to fight. Someone spoke with certainty. A few decades ago, the Yuan sect started a great purge. Rumor has it that all the experts that belonged to the 10 great immortal forces were slaughtered. This made people feel that the establishment of the Ten Clan War Alliance was aimed at the Yuan sect. The Yuan sect's position is extraordinary, and it has God-level order power. Only a colossus like the Yuan sect can make the 10 undying giants gather together. Otherwise, with just one undying giant's power, it's impossible to go against the Yuan sect. Someone analyzed as such. When the immortals fight, the mortals suffer. The storm has gathered, and the calamity is not far away. The world is destined to fall into chaos. The impact of the establishment of the Ten Clan Battle Alliance was too great. As time passed, all the major domains from the 8th heaven to the 1st heaven learned of this matter, setting off an uproar. The 10 immortal giants were going to arm wrestle with Yuan Jiao. This was definitely something that was rarely seen in the history of the eternal true world. Ever since the end of the Great Purge, the Yuan sect had closed the passageway to the primordial realm. It was as if they were isolated from the world. But for those big shots, it was easy for them to get news from the outside world. Therefore, the news about the Ten Clan War Alliance was also known by the Yuan sect immediately. Because of this, Xianfei Ling and the other deputy pavilion masters also held a closed-door meeting. The reaction of the deputy pavilion masters was very calm. This was something that they had already expected. Ten Clan War Alliance? I think it's more like a misstep. One misstep causes everlasting sorrow. This was Dugu Yang's evaluation, causing the other deputy pavilion masters to burst into malicious laughter. They are building momentum. If my guess is right, they will definitely make other moves in the next period of time. Xianfei Ling's eyes were cold, but it doesn't matter. Now, even if they have the guts, they won't dare to fight against us at this time. Everyone nodded. The power of the 10 great immortal giants was indeed terrifying, but it couldn't scare the Yuan sect. When a war of this scale broke out, it wasn't about the number of experts. The number of experts that could affect the outcome of the war was the most important. For example, the Nirvana God realm was also known as the mainstay of the immortal path, enough to run amok in various heavens. But once they encountered the transcendent realm, they would be as weak as ants. No matter how many Nirvana God realm experts there were, they wouldn't be as threatening as a transcendent realm expert. Right now, the 10 undying giants were overbearing. They had established the War Alliance and gathered the undying Emperor clans under the heavens for their use. It seemed like they had the advantage in numbers, but to the Yuan sect, this was not a serious threat. Brother Xian, should we inform Lin Sun about this? Fang Daoping asked. Xianfei Ling shook his head. It's not the time to start the war yet. There's no need to disturb his cultivation now. He and the other elders were clear that when Yuan Qing Pavilion Master Yu Beihai attained eternal Tao, this disaster might really come. Because only then, The deity-level order power covering Yuan realm will be disturbed by Yu Beihai's heaven and earth rules power, giving the enemy a chance to take advantage of it. Otherwise, with the protection of the deity-level order power, even the eternal realm's willpower wouldn't be able to shake or destroy it. Speaking of Lin Sun, he has been in seclusion for 36 years. I wonder how much his cultivation has evolved. Fong Daoping muttered, "This kid has the potential of an immortal sovereign. He's talented and heaven-defying." In the 10 demonic territories, he broke through from the early Nirvana God realm to the early Transcendent realm in just 10 years. After 36 years of seclusion, there's no doubt that his cultivation will have a huge breakthrough. Du Guiyong was full of confidence. Yu Xing, Tong Chaoyun, Zhang Qinshi, and the other deputy pavilion masters were also in agreement. In these years, Lin Sun's rapid progress had repeatedly broken people's understanding and subverted their imaginations. All of this made these old monsters certain that Lin Sun would have a huge breakthrough during this seclusion. Everyone, don't expect too much. We've all been in the Transcendent realm for many years. How can we not know how difficult it is to achieve rapid progress in the Transcendent realm? Xian Failing sighed softly. The 10 demonic territories' immortal cultivation battle is a rare opportunity, which allowed Lin Sun to achieve continuous breakthroughs in just 10 years. But the situation now is different. There are no opportunities. Everything depends on him to settle down and cultivate hard. It's destined to be impossible for him to improve his cultivation like before. This was like pouring cold water on them. However, what Xian Failing said wasn't wrong. These deputy pavilion masters knew how difficult it was to cultivate in the Transcendent realm. The oldest among them had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and even the youngest had lived for tens of thousands of years. But their cultivation had always been at the Transcendent realm great perfection level. Why? Because the Transcendent realm was the last realm of the immortal cultivation path. It was the peak below the eternal realm. The difficulty of this realm was naturally far from ordinary. Fong Daoping smiled and said, when Lin Sun had just reached the Transcendent realm, he could already kill a Transcendent realm great perfection. Even if his cultivation did not have any breakthrough in the past 36 years, his combat power was no different from that of a supreme of this realm. We don't have to worry about him at all. Everyone laughed and sighed with emotion. Just like what Fong Daoping said, Lin Sun's combat power was no longer something for these old guys to ponder about. But what they didn't know was, in the 10th year of seclusion, Lin Sun's cultivation had broken through to the Transcendent Realm Intermediate. In the 36th year of seclusion, Lin Sun's cultivation had gradually approached the Transcendent Realm Late from the Transcendent Realm Intermediate. Naturally, his progress could not be compared to the 10 years he spent in the 10 demonic territories, but it could still be said to be world-shaking, just as Xian Failing expected. In the second year after the 10 Clans War Alliance was established, Alliance leader Wang Zhongtian announced that everyone related to Fong Siyuan's successor, Lin Sun, would be wanted in the entire Eternal True World. Those who provided clues would be rewarded handsomely. Those who captured people related to Lin Sun alive would be rewarded handsomely. Those who secretly sheltered people related to Lin Sun would be exterminated. As soon as the news came out, the world was shocked. What was interesting was that the 10 Clans War Alliance used the words Fong Siyuan's successor, Lin Sun, instead of Yuan Sec Sky Pavilion Deputy Pavilion Master, Lin Sun. However, this kind of small trick could be seen through by anyone with a little insight. It was nothing more than to remove Lin Sun from Yuan's sect and isolate him. It gave people the feeling that the 10 Clans War Alliance wanted to deal with Lin Sun, not Yuan's sect. If the people of Yuan's sect knew what was good for them, they'd better hand over Lin Sun obediently. Otherwise, don't blame the 10 Clans War Alliance for falling out with them. When they received the news, even though Xian Failing and the others were prepared, they still felt sullen and uncontrollable killing intent. As soon as the 10 Clans War Alliance announced such an order, it could be foreseen that in the next period of time, countless forces would appear from the first heaven to the 8th heaven to find and capture people related to Lin Sun. Du Guiyong said in a low voice, "A few years ago, in order to deal with Fu Wenli and the others. Lin Sun had already taken action in advance. He went to the sixth heaven and settled the people of the Luo family. On the ancient path of the starry sky, Lin Sun's relatives had already entered the ultimate to hide. Under such circumstances, the Ten Clans War Alliance should not have any gains. When Lin Sun entered the eternal world from the vast thousand battle domains, he killed his way from the first heaven to the seventh heaven. Along the way, he had no chance or time to make friends with anyone except the Luo family. Instead, he made many enemies, Fong Daoping said. In my opinion, we don't have to worry about this matter. Xian Failing shook his head and said in a low voice, it's not appropriate. What if there are really friends and relatives related to Lin Sun in this eternal world who are captured? Everyone frowned. Indeed, it was better to be safe than sorry. Once such a thing happened, the Ten Clans War Alliance would definitely have hostages to threaten Lin Sun. Chapter 3000. Xian Failing said, this matter can also be said to be a test of Yuan's sex attitude, to see if we would rather go to war with the 10 immortal giants to protect Lin Sun. WW? 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 Oh, Wang Zhongtian, this old bastard, really has a good plan. Dugi Yong sneered. Fong Daoping said in a deep voice, there is absolutely no room for negotiation in this matter, and we must also show our attitude to the outside world. Otherwise, if the 10 immortal giants continue to be so aggressive, it will make us seem as if we are afraid of them. Yes, let's do that. I agree with Brother Fong's view. Yu Xing, Tong Chaoyun, and other deputy pavilion masters also supported Fong Daoping's proposal. Seeing this, Xian Failing nodded. On the same day, a heavy news came out from Yuan's sect. Anyone who regards Lin Sun as an enemy is an enemy of Yuan's sect. Anyone who aids the tiger and harms people related to Lin Sun will be slaughtered by Yuan's sect in the future. In the end, he deliberately added, don't say I didn't warn you. As soon as the news came out, the world was shocked. Those forces who were originally eager to go all over the world to inquire about and search for people related to Lin Sun all felt a chill in their hearts and retreated. Compared with the 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven, Yuan's sect's existence is even more transcendent in the eyes of the world. Now that they have a clear stand and expressed such a stern attitude, who wouldn't be afraid? If you want to be a dog for the Ten Clan War Alliance, you have to be prepared to be slaughtered. Otherwise, you won't even know how you die. Someone sighed. This is a real fight between giants. Ordinary people will definitely not have a good end if they get involved. Be careful of the fire at the city gate and the fish in the moat. So it seems that Yuan's sect is determined to protect Lin Sun. This Lin Sun is simply a mysterious figure. Who would dare to imagine that he can have today's influence? As the news spread, the discussion about Lin Sun also became the hottest topic in the major heavens. Many people discovered that long before Lin Sun entered the eternal world, his name had already spread to the eternal world and was known by many major forces. In these years, everything he did could be said to have attracted the attention of the world. For example, he killed all the way from the first heaven to the sixth heaven, entered the Yuan sect as the number one, and slaughtered a large number of participants in the immortal Dao battle. Every single one of those bloody achievements was sufficient to shake the world, and when they were accumulated together, it was especially shocking. As for the attitude expressed by the Yuan sect, the Ten Clan War Alliance did not show any weakness and quickly conveyed its attitude to the outside world. In the future, I will definitely destroy the Yuan sect. It was a short sentence, but it was equivalent to a direct declaration of war, and it expressed the most resolute attitude of the Ten Clan War Alliance. The world was shaken. When Xian Failing and the others heard the news, they calmly commented, "Mouth cannon. They are too clear about the background of the 10 immortal giants. Without the support of the eternal gods of the ninth heaven, without the help of the witch religion and Zen religion, they wouldn't dare to start a full-scale war against the Yuan sect." Sure enough, in the next few years, the Ten Clan War Alliance did not take any action under the attention of countless cultivators in the world. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace. This naturally aroused the doubts of the people in the world. There was such a big movement before, so why was there no movement now? Only Xian failing, and the others knew best that the Ten Clan War Alliance was waiting for the Yuan Qing Pavilion Master to travel to the North Sea to prove the eternal Tao. The changes in the outside world did not affect Lin's son. He had been cultivating in seclusion. This was already the 55th year of his seclusion. In the past 55 years, the order power and various rare divine medicines he collected were almost exhausted. His cultivation had just reached the transcendent late realm. Of course, this progress was already amazing. For Lin's son, the real harvest in the past 55 years was in the nirvana realm. In terms of refining the order power, he had now reached the nirvana realm. He had refined the order power by 60%. The immortal law could already compete with the divine level absolute beginning order power. Lin's son had a strong hunch that when he reached the nirvana realm, after the order power was completely refined, he could perceive the nirvana realm rule. In the transcendent realm, one could perceive the rule power, so they could not be bound by the rules of heaven and earth. In the eternal realm, one could control and use the rule power. Lin's son's immortal laws were derived from the nirvana divine tree. He had comprehended the order, and now he was continuously refining the nirvana divine bird. Order. The rules he comprehended were naturally related to nirvana. In other words, nirvana, rules. Nirvana, not only could it allow the power of order to be reconstructed and reborn, but it could also restrain and destroy the power of order. By now, Lin's son had only refined about 60% of the nirvana spirit. Order. However, he could clearly sense that when he absorbed the purple and green gourd into his body, these two rare 9th rank heaven rank order power could also be similar to nirvana. Such a nurturing. In short, Lin's son's immortal law had replaced the nirvana law. Order had many miraculous uses. It was like a mother's nest, and the power of order could be fused into it to nourish it and help it grow and transform. According to Wu Shuang, the immortal law that Lin's son had mastered was already comparable to the deity-level order. Among the transcendent realm, it was absolutely unique. But it was not enough for Lin. Nirvana was the only way. Only when order was completely refined could it truly be called unique. Summer solstice should wake up soon. On this day, Lin's son woke up from meditation and counted with his fingers. Summer solstice had been silent for 29 years, and summer solstice once said that she would wake up in at least 30 years. After thinking about it, Lin's son got up and decided to go out for a walk. 45 years of closed-door cultivation. There were only more than 30 years left before the day when Yuan Qing Pavilion's head traveled the North Sea to prove the Tao. He didn't know how many things had happened in the outside world during these years. The sky was clear and the clouds were steaming. After Lin Sun walked out of the cave residence, he wandered around. He saw many descendants of Yuan Kong Pavilion along the way, but no one noticed his existence. This was naturally Lin Sun's intention. He didn't want to be regarded as coming out because of his wandering out. It was not the time yet. He just wanted to relax, walk around, and learn about what had happened over the years. After an hour, Lin Sun, why did you come out today? When Lin Sun's figure appeared near Yuan Su Mountain, suddenly a surprised voice sounded. Lin Sun looked up and saw Du Yong. He immediately smiled and said, "After sitting for many years, I came out on a whim." Du Yong looked Lin Sun up and down and couldn't help but be moved. Your cultivation. With his cultivation, he couldn't see through Lin Sun's current cultivation. Late stage of transcendent realm, Lin Sun said frankly. Hiss. Du Yong took a deep breath, and his eyebrows showed an irrepressible shock. In just 45 years, you have broken through 2 small realms? At this moment, Lin Sun's breath was calm and ordinary, like the clouds in the sky, without any special power. It was hard to believe that he was now a late stage of transcendent realm. 45 years is not a short time. Lin Sun sighed. It was the first time for him to have such a long, closed-door cultivation since he started cultivating. Du Yong was stunned for a while and suddenly said, "Since I have nothing to do, would you like to fight with me and let me feel the combat power you have mastered now. Lin Sun said with a smile. If you want, I would be happy to accompany you. Let's go to the central Taoist field. Duguyong waved his hand with great pride. In Yuan school, only the power covered by the central Taoist field could withstand the combat power of Transcendent Realm. Okay. Immediately, Lin Sun and Duguyong moved to the central Taoist palace together. Hey, when did Lin Sun come out? On the way, Fong Daoping's voice suddenly sounded, and then his figure appeared out of thin air. Just now, Lin Sun said with a smile. Then what are you going to do? Fong Daoping looked at Duguyong. I'm going to fight with Lin Sun, and I'm going to the central Taoist field. Duguyong said with a smile. Old Fong. Now Lin Sun has the cultivation of late stage of Transcendent Realm. I won't bully him if I fight with him. Fong Daoping's eyes were bright, and he said with great interest, Let's go. I'll go with you. Ha ha. I know you won't miss such a good opportunity. Duguyong laughed. Fong Daoping smiled, and then he thought of something and said, It would be a pity to miss such a fight. Why don't you let old monster Xian and Yu Xing come too? Without waiting for an answer, he began to convey the message. Why do I feel that you, old Fong, can't wait for everyone to laugh at me? Duguyong said grumpily. Fong Daoping said with a smile, Don't worry. Even if you lose to Lin Sun, no one will be surprised. If you win, everyone will be shocked. Duguyong scolded with a smile. You old thing, you're too mean. While talking, they had arrived at the central Taoist field. The central Taoist field was extremely vast, and it was paved with black secret stones. If one looked down from the sky, it looked like a huge, round Tai Chi whoosh. Whoosh! Not long after Lin Sun and the others arrived, there was a sound of breaking through the air. From different directions, the 5 deputy pavilion masters, Xian Failing, Yu Xing, Yuan Wutian, Tong Chaoyan, and Zhang Qinshi, arrived one after another. All the old monsters were surprised that Lin Sun had now broken through to late stage of Transcendent Realm. When they looked at Duguyong, they couldn't help but have a look of ridicule on their faces. Old Dugu, you're looking for a beating. When he was in late stage of Transcendent Realm, Lin Sun killed Fu Wenli and Chiwen. Now he is already in late stage of Transcendent Realm. You still have the courage to fight with him. You're too bold. Xian Failing teased with a smile. Maybe old Dugu likes to be beaten, otherwise he will feel uncomfortable. Don't hurt old Dugu. What if he wins? Win? Ha! Everyone's ridicule made Duguyong's expression uncertain for a while, and he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. His original intention was to take the opportunity of learning from each other to test how powerful Lin Sun's cultivation was, but he never thought that there must be a winner. But now, Xian Fei Ling and the others had forced him into a corner. These old bastards, Duguyong cursed in his heart. I'll drag you down with me later. P.S. More updates tonight. Continue to ask for guaranteed monthly tickets. Chapter 3001. In the central Taoist sanctum, Lin Sun and Duguyong stood opposite each other. The old monsters who had been mocking and ridiculing Duguyong earlier also stood outside the dojo with a serious expression on their faces. Although they ridiculed Duguyong, they were also curious about Lin Sun's current combat strength. After taking a deep breath, Duguyong's momentum changed. His strong and slender figure suddenly seemed to become infinitely tall, stalwart like a mountain and dignified like a god. A violet and completely round, eternal divine ring condensed behind him, while countless strands of the laws of lightning transformed into all sorts of inconceivable phenomena that floated within it, causing him to seem like an overlord of the Tao of lightning. Brother, old Dugu has been cultivating for more than 110,000 years. He seems to be very old, but he was only over 1,000 years old when he proved the immortal way. At that time, he could be regarded as a peerless genius. This old boy has been immersed in this realm for a long time, and the power he has mastered is extraordinary. You should be careful, Fong Daoping said in a clear voice in the distance. Lin Sun nodded. Tut! Suddenly, Duguyong raised his right hand. Boom! Countless purple thunderbolts as thick as pythons fell from the sky. They were dense and bright, and they interweaved into a huge thunderbolt talisman with an area of 3,000 meters, and then it pressed down. In the talisman, the thunderbolts were like a waterfall, and the breath of destruction was overwhelming. Its power was extremely overbearing. Lin Sun stood still and drew a line in the void with his finger. Whoosh! A strand of sword chi slashed through the air, easily splitting the lightning decree into two as if it was tearing a painting apart. Xian Feiling and others narrowed their eyes slightly. Du Guiyang's attack was called Leakless Thunderbolt Talisman. If it was used against an ordinary opponent in the same realm, it could smash the opponent's flesh and blood into pieces in an instant. But Lin Sun broke it with a single sword strike. "Senior, don't hold back," Lin Sun said calmly. "It doesn't matter whether I win or lose. I just want to fight to my heart's content." Du Guiyang laughed heroically. "Okay." His beard and hair fluttered, and dazzling thunderstorm torrent emerged all over his body. He pinched his hand, and the dense thunderstorm law turned into a purple spear. Boom! As he stepped out, the world was shocked. The purple thunderbolt spear in his hand was like a divine rainbow, overbearing, fierce, and swift. That terrifying, destructive aura was like a heavenly punishment descending upon the world. Lin Sun's eyes brightened slightly. This was a little interesting. He leaped forward, his clothes fluttering in the wind as he brandished his fists. Dang! The purple battle spear was forcefully blocked, and a rain of light splashed 3,000 feet. Du Guiyang wasn't surprised by this, and his imposing aura grew even stronger as he swung his spear and charged forward. Every single strike of his carried the might to obliterate the heavens and the earth, and countless laws of lightning rumbled and swept out mightily. Lin Sun was still calm and collected. He didn't retreat or evade, but confronted the attack head-on. For a time, rumbling resounded incessantly in the central battlefield, while divine radiance swept out like a raging ocean. A battle of this level could be said to be the pinnacle of battles below the eternal realm. If it was someone of any other cultivation realm who rashly joined in, that person would be instantly annihilated. But in just a moment, Xian Feiling and the others were shocked. Du Guiyang had exerted all his strength without reservation, but in the battle, he couldn't even gain the slightest advantage, let alone suppress Lin Sun. On the other hand, Lin Sun had obviously held back. Otherwise, Du Guiyang would have been defeated. How can this brat be so strong? Tong Chaoyun's eyes widened. After the great purge of the sect, Xian Feiling once proposed that Lin Sun should be a deputy head of Yuankong Pavilion, but Tong Chaoyun doubted it. Later, Tong Chaoyun heard from Xian Feiling that Lin Sun had killed Zhu Wenheng, Fu Wenli, and other old monsters at the early stage of Transcendent Realm, so Tong Chaoyun agreed that Lin Sun should be the deputy head. But after all, he hadn't seen Lin Sun's real ability, so he was so surprised after witnessing Lin Sun's power at this moment. "Old Monster Fong, what are you doing? Can't you see that I can't force this brat to use all his strength alone?" Du Guiyang shouted in the battlefield. Fong Daoping's lips twitched. How could he not know that Du Guiyang was going to drag him down with him? "Old Fong, go ahead. What old Dugu said is true." Xian Feiling and others spoke one after another. "All right." Fong Daoping took a deep breath, jumped into the battlefield, and rushed towards Lin Sun at the first time. Boom! His figure was thin, and his whole body was surging with brilliant cyan light. As he raised his hands and feet, countless wonderful methods poured out. The power was so great that it was eye-catching. Old Fong is a sensible man. He used all his strength as soon as he came to the field. Obviously, he also knew that he couldn't hold back when fighting with a monster like Lin Sun. Yuan Wuqian laughed. The battle in the central battlefield became more and more intense. The two deputy heads attacked Lin Sun together, which was enough to make anyone in the same realm tremble with fear. But what surprised Xian Feiling and others was that Lin Sun was still able to deal with it easily, methodically. No matter how powerful and terrifying the way of killing was, it was easily resolved by him. Xian Feiling and others looked at each other. How could they not see that even if Fong Daoping and Dugi Yong joined forces, they couldn't force Lin Sun to use all his strength? It was incredible. Yuan Wutian, can't you see old Monster Fong? What are you waiting for? Dugu Yong began to shout again. His words were so lethal that Fong Daoping and Yuan Wutian both gritted their teeth. Lin Sun, what do you think? Yuan Wutian asked. It would be a shame if the two deputy heads, who had lived for countless years, joined forces to deal with a young deputy head like Lin Sun. If the three deputy heads fought together, it would even be bullying. Senior, just come at me. On the battlefield, Lin Sun looked up to the sky and laughed. Okay. Yuan Wutian no longer talked nonsense and rushed into the Taoist field. Suddenly, the situation of the battle changed subtly. With the addition of Yuan Wutian, Lin Sun was obviously not as relaxed as before. But before Xian Fei Ling and others could breathe a sigh of relief, they saw Lin Sun's tall figure suddenly glowing and his power soared a lot. All of a sudden, the attacks of the three deputy heads, Dugi Yong, Fong Daoping, and Yuan Wutian, were blocked and even showed signs of being suppressed by Lin Sun. This made Xian Fei Ling and others dizzy. Was this Lin Sun's real ability? There was no doubt that Lin Sun didn't use all his strength in the face of the two deputy heads, Dugu Yong and Fong Daoping. It was Yuan Wutian's participation that forced him to use all his strength. Brother Yuxing, you go too. Xian Fei Ling's eyes were shining. I'd like to see how long Lin Sun can hold on. Okay. Yuxing was very happy. Without any nonsense, he immediately rushed into the battlefield. Boom! The central battlefield was vast, but at this time, it was submerged by the rolling divine light. There were all kinds of terrible visions, and the roar of the battle resounded between heaven and earth. If ordinary people were here, they couldn't see the battle at all. Only Xian Fei Ling and others could see the battle on the battlefield at this moment. However, gradually, a dignified look appeared on their faces. The four deputy heads attacked together, but they couldn't suppress Lin Sun. Each of them had used all their strength, which was enough to easily kill those in the same realm as them. But they couldn't suppress Lin Sun's sharpness. This was incredible. They had carefully observed that with the continuous addition of deputy heads, Lin Sun's power would also rise to a higher level. Every time, he was just able to deal with all the attacks. Xian Fei Ling and others were old and sophisticated. How could they not see that Lin Sun didn't want to win too quickly, so as to lose the face of those old guys? Of course, it also proved that Lin Sun's combat power had been so strong that people couldn't see through it. Every time they thought he was forced to use all his strength, his power would soar again, which made Xian Fei Ling and others feel confused. Old Tong, you and Old Zhang go together. Xian Fei Ling gave an order. Tong Chaoyun and Zhang Qinshi looked at each other and took action. They didn't care about their face anymore. Up to now, this battle had aroused their strong fighting desire. They were curious about how powerful Lin Sun was to force him to use all his strength. The addition of Tong Chaoyun and Zhang Qinshi changed the situation of the whole battlefield into 6 deputy heads fighting against Lin Sun. The battle became more and more fierce than before. At this time, Lin Sun felt some pressure, but it was far from enough. He took a deep breath and completely released the limits of his cultivation. Every single move he made was filled with a peerless aura that seemed capable of crushing everything. In the blink of an eye, he'd broken through the encirclement of these 6 old fellows. This caused a burst of exclamation in the field. Du Guiyong and others opened their eyes wide and couldn't believe it. It should be known that they were deputy heads of Yuan Church. After years of ups and downs, they had seen the vicissitudes of the world. Even the top 10 immortal giants of the same realm were not taken seriously by them. Moreover, with their combat power, they were indeed not comparable to ordinary people of the same realm. But now, they still failed to suppress Lin Sun in the case of 6-1. Instead, Lin Sun reversed the situation and counterattacked. Old Monster Xian, you're the only one left. How long are you going to watch the fun? Du Guiyong shouted. Xian Fei Ling sighed in his heart. He was afraid that his great-grandson would use this matter to satirize him for a long time, because this battle was doomed to be inevitable. Swish! His figure flashed, and he charged into the battlefield. As the 7 deputy heads attacked together, Lin Sun's fighting spirit was aroused, and he became braver. Du Guiyong and Xian Fei Ling also gnashed their teeth and tried their best. Lin Sun's strength also aroused the anger of these old guys. Time went by, just when Du Guiyong and the others were about to kill until their eyes turned red. Lin Sun suddenly withdrew and said, "Seniors, how about we call it a draw?" Du Guiyong and others were all stunned. Looking at Lin Sun, who was unscathed and standing in the distance with a smile, unspeakable complex emotions surged in their hearts, making them feel suffocated. After all, they didn't defeat this boy. Smoke and dust filled the air. Outside the central Taoist field, there were already many figures, all of whom were strong practitioners of Yuan Church. At this moment, they all widened their eyes and looked at all this in shock and sluggish. Before, they couldn't see the battle in the central Taoist field clearly with their low cultivation. But now they all saw it clearly. That was 7 deputy heads attacked Lin Sun together. Gosh, this was too crazy, wasn't it? I'm sending you more updates. Chapter 3002. The field was silent. When they saw the figures of the people outside the field, Xian Feiling, Du Guiyong, and the other 5 deputy pavilion heads fell hot and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Damn it, they all saw it. Xian Feiling coughed and said, "We were discussing with Deputy Lin before, but we didn't expect to disturb you. Now, you can leave." Everyone had a strange look on their faces, but they all tactfully left. But everyone's heart was in turmoil, and they couldn't calm down for a long time. What kind of sparring was it that made 7 deputy pavilion masters attack Deputy Pavilion Master Lin at the same time? Deputy Pavilion Leader Lin had been in seclusion for 55 years, and his combat strength had already transformed to such an unimaginable level. It was shocking, seeing the figures of the people disappear. Xian Feiling looked at each other and shook his head with a wry smile. From today on, Lin Sun is the best among the deputy pavilion heads in terms of combat power. Du Guiyong sighed with emotion. It was he who proposed a fight with Lin Sun in order to test how powerful Lin Sun was. But until the end of the battle, he deeply realized that even if the 7 deputy pavilion heads fought together, they couldn't defeat Lin Sun. If it weren't for Lin Sun's timely intervention, these old guys would have been defeated. Alas, the longer you live, the less you can do. Compared with Lin Sun, it's like the difference between weeds on the ground and the sun. Until now, I have realized that the longer you live, the stronger you are. Seeing all the old guys sighing with emotion with complicated expressions, Lin Sun felt embarrassed and said, "Seniors, please don't belittle yourself. Otherwise, it will be too much for me." Xian Feiling laughed and said, "Guys, don't be sentimental. Lin Sun is walking on the path of immortality, which is unique in the world. If he can't be invincible in this realm, how can he deserve the title of supreme? It's not wrong for us to be defeated by him." Du Guiyong and the others all laughed. Of course, they wouldn't be affected by such a setback. "Lin Sun, let me ask you, how long do you think we can hold on in a real life-and-death fight?" Fang Daoping asked seriously with a serious look. Other old monsters also looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun thought for a while and said with a smile, "It should be shorter than the previous battle." How could he possibly say that in a life-and-death battle, he could kill any one of them in an instant? This hurt his pride. However, even though his words were tactful, Xian Feiling and the others still understood what he meant, and all of them sighed endlessly. Now, Lin Sun's attainments in the transcendent realm had undoubtedly surpassed these old monsters. In my opinion, if we want to force Lin Sun to use all of his power, I'm afraid we have to use the power of the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol. Xian Feiling said with burning eyes, "Lin Sun, why don't we go to the mystery realm and let Taishian Pavilion Master test your ability?" Du Guiyong's eyes lit up, and he slapped his thigh. "Wonderful. Very good, very good." Other old monsters also laughed and surrounded Lin Sun enthusiastically. This brat had embarrassed them so much just now. It was time to let him suffer a little. Lin Sun felt that something was wrong and said, "Seniors, it's getting late. I have to." As soon as he was about to leave, Xian Failing put his arm around his shoulder, and other old monsters also surrounded Lin Sun and walked away. "Little guy, try your ability so that you can know how to make progress more clearly. Don't worry. We promise that we are not doing this to see you make a fool of yourself. Yes, we won't see you make a fool of yourself. Lin Sun, we are doing this for your own good. After all, not every deputy pavilion master can have such an opportunity. Don't worry, we will ask Taishian Pavilion Master to be merciful and guarantee that you will not have any life-threatening danger." The old monsters were all very enthusiastic, but those words of comfort made Lin Sun's heart skip a beat. How could he not know that these old guys couldn't wait to see him make a fool of himself? He couldn't help cursing in his heart, who said that these old monsters were very open-minded. The Mystery Realm, the place where Tai Xian, the head of Yuanshu Pavilion, practiced in seclusion. It was still the familiar vast starry sky. Tai Xian, dressed in linen, sat cross-legged in the starry sky, with a chessboard condensed by the Great Way in front of him. It was still the same as when Lin Sun met him for the first time, playing chess with himself and dealing with himself. Knowing the purpose of Xian Failing's visit, Tai Xian couldn't help but be surprised and looked at Lin Sun. Seeing that Lin Sun was surrounded by a group of old monsters with a helpless face, Tai Xian immediately joked, "If you were forced, blink." Lin Sun's lips twitched, and he said, "Actually, I came here voluntarily. The reason why these seniors are so enthusiastic is also for my own good." Xian Failing and others laughed. Tai Xian was also happy. He stood up and said, "Even if you were forced to come here, I also want to try your current combat power." Lin Sun, was there any justice in this? Condensing the power of will damage my own cultivation. How about I fight with the power of my own body? Tai Xian said and found that Lin Sun's face was dark, so he immediately added, "Of course, I promise that I will only display the power of the will." Lin Sun let out a long sigh. He realized that he could not escape this disaster. "Lin Sun, do well. Let Taishian Pavilion Master see what the power of the Immortal Supreme Master is. Don't be afraid. You can rest assured that no matter how serious the injury is, we will definitely cure you." Xian Failing and others encouraged Lin Sun one after another, but their smiling faces made it impossible not to suspect that they were gloating. Moreover, when they spoke, they all hid far away, as if they were afraid that the next battle would affect them. Seeing this, Lin Sun calmed down. He looked at Tai Xian and said, "Then I will do as you say." He took a deep breath, and the vital energy in his body rumbled and circulated. Tai Xian looked at him for a moment and flicked his fingers. Clang! A sword chi slashed out, and the sword intent alone was full of the great majesty of the eternal realm. Xian Failing and others all felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and their minds had the illusion of being torn apart. Their expressions suddenly became extremely dignified. Although Tai Xian only used the power comparable to the will of the will, the power was still enough to pose a fatal threat to any transcendent realm. Just like this casual sword strike, these old fellows might only be able to avoid it if they used all of their means. If they resisted, they would either die or be seriously injured. But Lin Sun took a deep breath and didn't dodge. His sleeves fluttered, and he had already punched out. The fist force was like an abyss, imprinted with the essence, chi, and spirit of his body, and filled with the obscure and magical immortal law. When it collided with the sword, it suddenly produced an earth-shattering roar, and the nearby starry sky trembled violently. Bang! The sword chi collapsed and disappeared. Lin Sun's figure shook slightly, and his chi and blood were tumbling. But he was not injured. Xian Failing and others couldn't help but be moved. He blocked it. In the distance, Tai Xian's eyes were also filled with a strange light. He immediately put his fingers together, and another sword chi slashed out. Compared with the previous sword, the power was at least 30% higher. Moreover, there was an eternal momentum in this sword, which only made Xian Failing and other old monsters feel small and desperate when they looked at it from a distance. This sword wasn't something they could dodge at all, let alone resist it. But at this moment, Lin Sun's body seemed to be burning, shining brightly, and every inch of his pores was steaming with crystal light. Boom! He stepped in the starry sky and waved his fist. The fist and sword intertwined and exploded in the void. In the splashing rain of light, Lin Sun's figure rushed forward and raised his fist to kill. His strong and arrogant posture made Xian Failing and others stunned. Who could believe that under such circumstances, Lin Sun dared to take such a strong counterattack? Good. Tai Xian sighed in admiration. He stood still, but there were streams of sword chi rushing out with a loud roar and chopping at Lin Sun. Every sword chi had the power to shock the world and suppress the sky. It was brilliant and vast, like a ray of light that suddenly appeared in eternity. In an instant, Lin Sun fell into a state of suppression and was in a dangerous situation. The sword chi was too terrifying. It belonged to the power of the eternal realm. If it were other transcendent realm figures, they would have been slaughtered on the spot. But Lin Sun was fighting against it, and the more he was defeated, the braver he became. This made Xian Failing and others' eyes widen, and their faces were filled with shock. How could he be so strong? But soon, with Tai Xian's attack, Lin Sun was firmly suppressed and had no way out. Boom! At this moment, he had to use Abyssal Sword Cauldron to resist and destroy the dense sword chi one by one. His body was full of Taoist light, and his eyes were burning. He said, "Senior, don't hold back." Tai Xian smiled and nodded. Boom! A sword formation pattern emerged, becoming more and more terrifying. It suppressed Lin Sun to the point that he felt suffocated. He could only rely on Abyssal Sword Cauldron to resist, unable to carry out an effective counterattack. But Lin Sun didn't give up. In the next moment, the 5 Tao bodies rushed out together and joined forces with Lin Sun. In just a moment, the sword formation pattern was destroyed, and it turned into an endless rain of light. Tai Xian was startled, and he seemed to be extremely surprised. His eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of shock. The power of his sword formation pattern was comparable to the full force attack of the will of the Dharma form. But Lin Sun still broke it. How could he not be surprised? A young transcendent realm late stage had the power to resist the eternal realm will of the Dharma form. If this was spread out, the world would be shocked. Just like at this moment, Xian Failing and the others were stunned, and their eyes were in a trance. Previously, they were waiting to see how Lin Sun would be tortured so that they could relieve the depression in their hearts. But who would have thought that the power Lin Sun displayed in the battle would once again exceed their imagination and expectations, which made them suddenly realize one thing. If Lin Sun used such terrifying combat power in the Central Taoist Rite, the 7 Deputy Pavilion Masters would not be able to withstand a single blow. They would be easily suppressed by Lin Sun. Chapter 3003. On the battlefield. Senior, come again. Lin Sun's black hair fluttered in the wind, and he let out a long roar. At this moment, he was really forced to display his unprecedented power. His power pierced through the starry sky, which was so terrifying that it made people tremble. Well, I will fight with you with the power of my will. Tai Xian took a deep breath and waved his sleeves. The dazzling sword chi emerged like a river and rushed towards Lin Sun. All of a sudden, Xian Failing and the others were horrified and had a strong sense of suffocation. Boom! The starry sky was chaotic and the sun and moon were dim. Under this blow, even though Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers resisted with all their strength, they were still injured. They staggered and coughed up blood. Their bodies were covered with bloody wounds caused by the sword chi, which was shocking. Come again. Lin Sun took a deep breath. Under his calm look, there was a faint, crazy aura spreading. His black eyes were like an abyss, and his pupils seemed to be burning with monstrous flames. Over the years, he had rarely been injured and rarely felt the dangerous aura when he was suppressed. Instead of making him afraid, it aroused his long-lost fighting spirit and made his blood boil. Boom! Lin Sun and the 5 Tao bodies rushed together, and their power was getting stronger and stronger. Tai Xian naturally wouldn't hold back. He attacked with the full power equivalent to the power of his will. The sword Qi was like a rainbow, covering the starry sky. The eternal sword intent was like a landslide and a tsunami, filling every inch of the void. In the battle, Lin Sun and the 5 Tao bodies were soon injured. Their bodies were stained with blood, and they looked extremely embarrassed. However, his aura grew stronger and sharper in this battle of blood and fire. It was like going through a bloody and cruel trial, baptized in killing and blood, and sublimated in extreme danger. However, his injuries were too serious. His body was like porcelain with countless cracks, and blood was flowing. It was shocking. When he blocked another rain of swords, Lin Sun staggered and almost lost his balance. At this time, Tai Xian stopped and looked at Lin Sun. That's enough. Lin Sun put away the 5 Tao bodies and said, "Senior, let me borrow this place." Tai Xian nodded. Lin Sun sat cross-legged in meditation, running his qi and falling into a deep meditation. This battle had practically squeezed out all the energy in his body. It was extremely dangerous and crazy, and it allowed his cultivation to obtain unprecedented tempering. Sometimes it wasn't a good thing to progress too quickly in cultivation. Because of the lack of true tempering, it was extremely easy for one's foundation to be unstable. Just like in the 55 years of seclusion, his cultivation had broken through twice and entered the transcendent late realm. Although the transformation brought about was shocking, in the battle with Tai Xian, many problems were exposed. For example, if one's control over their strength wasn't proficient enough, a portion of the strength they unleashed would be completely wasted. For example, during a battle, he was still unable to completely fuse his willpower with his essence, energy, and spirit. The reason for this was that even though his cultivation had risen rapidly, he lacked tempering. When he wasn't in battle, it was impossible to sense it, but once he encountered a fatal blow, it would be completely exposed. Fortunately, this battle was equivalent to an extreme tempering, and it had the effect of helping him find out what he was lacking and perfecting himself. The starry sky became silent. Looking at Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, it took a long time for Xian Failing and the others to recover from the shock, and their expressions became subtle. This battle finally allowed them to thoroughly feel the extreme combat power that Lin Sun had now. But something embarrassing happened. With their eyesight, the only thing they could be sure of was that Lin Sun's current strength was absolutely worthy of being called Immortal Supreme. However, they couldn't judge to what extent Lin Sun's combat power had reached, because since ancient times, there had never been someone like Lin Sun in this world who had such a heaven-defying combat power in the transcendent late realm. Brother Tai Xian, how is his combat power? After a while, Xian Failing looked at Tai Xian in the distance. Among the people present, only Tai Xian, who had just taught Lin Sun a lesson, knew this best. Tai Xian's state of mind at this moment was also slightly agitated. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Above the transcendent realm, he can compete with the eternal realm willpower." There was a sound of gasping. They knew too well what this sentence meant. Xian Failing couldn't help but continue to ask, "But wasn't he defeated very badly just now? If he encounters such an opponent, what are the chances of him winning?" Tai Xian said, "I won't hide it from you guys. The power I used before is equivalent to the power of my willpower. However, Lin Sun can still hold on until now. It can be inferred that if Lin Sun encounters such an opponent in the future, he should have a great chance of killing the opponent." After a pause, he continued, "After all, he hasn't used his talent power. When he can compete with the willpower of an eternal realm, his talent power will be the key to his victory." Xian Failing and the others were silent, and their hearts were in turmoil. In the past, when Lin Sun went to the ruins of fate, he still needed the protection of Tai Xian's willpower. It was the same when he returned from the 10 demon territories. But now, he didn't need these anymore. He could compete with the willpower of an eternal realm alone. Everyone knew that it was almost impossible for the original body of an eternal realm to participate in the battle of the seventh and eighth heaven, because it would be counterattacked by the rules of heaven and earth. Under such circumstances, the eternal realm's Dharma idol could be said to be invincible. Lin Sun could have the foundation to compete with it at the transcendent realm late. It was conceivable how terrifying his combat power was. This matter can't be leaked, and we must not let any outside forces know. Xian Failing made a decision, and it immediately received the approval of other big shots. After a few hours, Lin Sun woke up from meditation, and the injuries on his body had completely healed. Seeing this, Xian Failing and the others immediately decided to leave. Lin Sun originally planned to ask when Tai Xian could break the self-restraint and come out of the close cultivation, but he was stopped by Xian Failing in advance. It was not until they left the mysterious realm of enlightenment that Xian Failing said, "The threat of the Tin Clan Battle Alliance is not enough to trap our sect, and there is no need to delay the cultivation of the Tai Xian Pavilion Master because of such a thing. Otherwise, his countless years of seclusion will be in vain." Lin Sun nodded, thinking about it. Although the Eternal God Clan in the Ninth Heaven was terrifying, the original body of an Eternal Realm figure couldn't directly participate in the fight against the Yuan sect. As long as Tai Xian was in the Yuan sect, how could the Sorcerer cult and Zen cult dare to easily dispatch the Eternal Realm? Unless it was a matter of life and death. No matter who it was, it would be impossible for them to play their strongest trump card. Central Hall. Lin Sun, Xian Failing, and the other 7 deputy pavilion masters gathered together, drinking and chatting. From their mouths, Lin Sun also learned about what happened during the 55 years of close cultivation. For example, the establishment of the Tin Clan Battle Alliance, the orders announced by the Tin Clan Battle Alliance, and the counterattack made by the Yuan sect. In short, in the current eternal world, everyone knows that there will be a war between us and the Tin Clan Battle Alliance, Xian Failing concluded. If we defend passively, it is undoubtedly too passive. Lin Sun frowned. Xian Failing and the others suddenly realized what Lin Sun wanted to do, and they immediately dissuaded him. Lin Sun, the world is in turmoil now. Once you go out, you will become the target of public criticism. If anything goes wrong, it will not be good. According to our analysis, the Tin Clan Battle Alliance may be holding back now, but in fact, their forces have already been distributed outside the Yuan realm. As long as you appear, you will definitely be noticed at once. Now, the Zen cult and the Sorcerer cult have not taken any action and seem to be unusually low-key, but it is hard to say that they have already colluded with the Tin Clan Battle Alliance. You have to be careful. Lin Sun was a little speechless and a little touched. How could he not see that these old people reacted so intensely because they cared about him? It was not until a long time later that Lin Sun said seriously, "Seniors with my current strength, who in this world can still trap me?" Xian Failing and the others looked at each other in silence. No one could stop Lin Sun unless they were in the Eternal Realm. What's more, if I encounter a fatal threat, I can immediately escape back to the sect. Lin Sun said, "On the contrary, if we keep defending passively, it will give the enemy more time to make arrangements. Once Pavilion Leader Yu Beihai proves the Eternal Realm, without the protection of the power of the divine level, our sect will fall into a dangerous situation of being ambushed from all sides." It was not that Xian Failing and the others didn't know this, but in their opinion, this disaster had not developed to an extremely serious level. Similarly, from the bottom of their hearts, they also agreed with Lin Sun's analysis. Once forces such as the Tin Clan Battle Alliance, the Sorcerer cult, and the Zen cult decided to attack, they must have come prepared and made all kinds of preparations. At that time, even if the Yuan sect could resist, they would probably have to pay some price. "What are you going to do?" Xian Failing asked. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and he said, "Hit the snake where it hurts. Dealing with ordinary people can't have much impact on those enemies at all. If we want to disrupt their layout, we must adopt some strategies, such as using my Tao doppelganger as bait to attract the enemy's attention. Before he finished his words, he was interrupted by Du Guillaume. "This is too dangerous." Lin Sun was speechless and said, "It's just a Tao doppelganger. Even if it is destroyed, it won't affect my original body. What's more, do you think those enemies have the confidence to destroy my doppelganger?" His voice was full of disdain. His 5 Tao bodies had the same combat power as his original body. Perhaps when fighting against the Eternal Realm's will and Dharma form, only his original body and the 5 Tao bodies could fight against it. But at the very least, anyone in the 5 Tao bodies had the power to kill the existence of Transcendent Realm Great Perfection. Looking at the 10-clan battle alliance, how many existences of Transcendent Realm Great Perfection were there? How many Eternal Realms will and Dharma form were in their hands? Children, do you still have monthly tickets? Goldfish planned to add more chapters tonight. Chapter 3004. Hearing Lin Sun's words, Xian Failing and the others looked at each other and hesitated for a long time before they all agreed. Lin Sun suddenly laughed. It wasn't that he had to go out on a whim. It was just that after learning about what had happened in the past few years, Lin Sun realized that if he kept hiding in Yuan's sect like this, he might be able to live peacefully in these years. But as long as the deadline for Yu Beihai to prove his Tao came, Yuan's sect would inevitably encounter unpredictable disasters. At that time, it might be resolved, but Yuan's sect would definitely pay a great price. This was what Lin Sun didn't want to see. He didn't want Yuan's sect to suffer, and he didn't want any casualties among the people he was familiar with in Yuan's sect. That was why he decided to go out for a walk, to disrupt the situation in the world by himself. "When are you going to leave?" Xian Failing asked. "Today," Lin Sun said without hesitation. There was no time to lose. Since he had decided, there was no need to delay. "Do you need anyone to accompany you?" Xian Failing asked again. Obviously, he was worried about Lin Sun. Lin Sun shook his head and said with a smile, "Seniors, don't worry. I won't fight with the enemy like a fool." Xian Failing and the others all suppressed their worries and nodded. Even though they all knew that Lin Sun's current combat power was enough to dominate the world, they still couldn't help but worry. It could also be seen that they had long regarded Lin Sun as one of their own. It was because they cared too much about Lin Sun's safety that they inevitably acted like this. It was like in the eyes of parents, no matter how old their children were or how great their achievements were, they still needed to worry about their children. On the same day, Lin Sun quietly left Yuan's sect. Outside the Yuan realm, on the infinite star sea, with his hands behind his back, Lin Sun walked forward. Every step he took was like the movement of the stars, and he disappeared thousands of miles away in an instant. Along the way, he noticed the aura of many practitioners in his huge divine awareness. They seemed to be very ordinary, but Lin Sun was very clear that among these practitioners, there must be eyes belonging to the 10-clan fighting alliance. Lin Sun didn't pay attention to these small characters. He had other plans in mind. One day later, the 7th heaven, the central star area, divine land of star. Lin Sun walked into this prosperous and affluent territory. After walking for thousands of miles, he came to a city called Sanjiang. It was the cold winter season. Heavy snow fluttered in the air, and everything was covered in silver. In Sanjiang City, Lin Sun sat down in a restaurant. A storyteller was talking about the general trend of the world, attracting the attention of many diners. Speaking of which, that Lin Sun is also an incredibly ruthless person. Ever since he entered the eternal true world, the number of powerful warriors who died in his hands is as numerous as the number of stars in the sky. At this point, the storyteller smiled mysteriously and said, "To be honest, the current overlord of our divine star province, the immortal emperor clan, the Hong clan, also has a deep enmity with Lin Sun. It is said that as early as when Lin Sun was fighting in the Kiliacosm battle domain, the experts of the Hong family and Lin Sun became enemies. When Lin Sun appeared in the 6th heaven, the Hong family sent many powerful figures to the Luo family to kill Lin Sun. But who would have thought that they still failed? Someone couldn't help but ask, how did the Hong family fail? The storyteller coughed and said, "Everyone, this is the territory of the Hong family after all. How would I dare to comment on such matters? Coward." Old man, you're quite smart. You know what to say and what not to say." A burst of laughter resounded in the hall. The storyteller didn't feel ashamed and smiled. However, just as he was about to continue, a sneer suddenly rang out. "Men, capture this smelly storyteller." The hall immediately fell silent, and everyone looked at the person who spoke. It was a young man wearing a black crane cloak. His eyes were filled with arrogance and coldness. There were two retainers standing beside him. They immediately rushed out and grabbed the storyteller, bringing him to the side of the young man in the crane cloak. Bang! The storyteller was directly forced to kneel there. His mind was in a daze, and he said in a trembling voice, "Young master, if I have offended you in any way, I apologize first. I only hope that young master can be magnanimous and forgive me this time." The young man in the crane cloak said indifferently, "You're only begging for mercy now? It's too late. However, I won't bother with a lowly person like you. As long as you pull out your tongue, I'll let you go." Pull out his tongue. The expressions of the diners all changed. This storyteller relied on his silver tongue to make a living. Once he was crippled, how could he still have a foothold in the city? "This young master, what made you so unhappy?" Someone couldn't help but ask. One of the retainers beside the young man in the crane cloak said coldly, "My young master's surname is Hong." One sentence caused the expressions of everyone present to change, and they kept quiet out of fear. The storyteller was directly dumbfounded. He realized that he had caused trouble from his mouth this time. He fiercely kowtowed and fearfully said, "Those who don't know are innocent. Please forgive me. Please forgive me." The young man in the crane cloak had an indifferent expression. "Since you made a mistake, you should receive your punishment. The reputation of my Hong family cannot be slandered by a lowly person like you." "Do it." Pull out his tongue. "Yes." One of the retainers at the side was about to make a move. The storyteller was so frightened that his face turned pale, and he sat there paralyzed. At this time, an indifferent voice sounded, "How impressive. The things that your Hong family has done in the past cannot be judged by others." Swoosh! Everyone's gazes looked towards the direction of the voice, and they saw a thin man sitting alone near the window, drinking by himself. "Oh, today is strange. In my Hong family's territory, there are actually people who aren't afraid of death jumping out to support a stinky storyteller." The eyes of the young man in the crane cloak turned cold. "Speak. Who are you? And who gave you the courage to go against my Hong family?" The thin man drained the wine in his cup in one gulp, then stood up and laughed. "So what if I go against your Hong family? I might as well speak frankly. After today, the Hong family will no longer have a place to stand in Star Province. You're courting death." The expression of a young man in the crane cloak changed. The thin man smiled slightly and said, "You don't believe me? Then how about I bring you along to see it with your own eyes?" As he spoke, he grabbed at the air. The young man in the crane cloak was like a little chick that was carried in the hands of the thin man. His eyes rolled back, his entire body twitched, and he fainted. The two retainers wanted to rescue him at the first possible moment. But before they could move, they soundlessly transformed into ashes that drifted down like withered leaves that were instantly incinerated. Everyone was shocked by this scene, and when they recovered from their shock, the thin man had already vanished into thin air with the young man in the crane cloak. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and then the oppressive and silent atmosphere seemed to have exploded. Who was that person? He actually dared to attack a disciple of the Hong family? He also said that the immortal Emperor clan, the Hong family, will be removed from Star Province today. Don't listen to such words. The Hong family moved from the 6th heaven to the 7th heaven. And although they've only been in Star Province for a little over 100 years, how could their foundation be shaken by any cultivator? To be blunt, although that fellow is extremely daring, he's also a braggart. Now that he's offended a disciple of the Hong family, I'm afraid it's a problem whether he can leave Star Province alive. Everyone discussed endlessly. Only the storyteller sat paralyzed on the ground and stared blankly. He had a feeling that things wouldn't be so simple. Sure enough, on that very day, shocking news spread throughout Star Province. The immortal Emperor clan, the Hong family, had collapsed Their lair had been destroyed, and all their great figures had been executed. Even the order power of their clan had been taken away. As soon as the news came out, the diners who had seen the thin man in the restaurant couldn't help but be stunned. Their hands and feet were cold. It actually came true. The storyteller had already left Sanjiang City. When he heard the news, he couldn't help but laugh excitedly. "I know who you are. I know who you are." This old man knows that the only person in this world who dares to do such a thing is you, senior. No matter what reason you saved this old man will never forget this great kindness in his life. He knelt down on the snow-covered road and kowtowed 3 times with a solemn expression. The news of the destruction of the immortal Emperor clan, the Hong family, spread at an astonishing speed in the 7th heaven, causing many waves. The immortal Emperor clans that have long surrendered to the 10-clan war alliance were all in a panic. They all had a hunch. The destruction of the immortal Emperor clan, the Hong family, is very likely to be Lin Sun's doing. Because as long as you pay attention to it, you will know that the Hong family and Lin Sun have been enemies for a long time. Could it be that Lin Sun has already left the Yuan sect and is now in this heaven? Quickly, pass the news to the 10-clan war alliance. The great immortal Emperor clans in the 7th heaven were in turmoil. No one dared to be careless. About 55 years ago, Lin Sun appeared in the 7th heaven and destroyed the 4 Eastern Imperial clans and the immortal Emperor clan, the Zhuang family. This matter made the other immortal Emperor clans in the 7th heaven uneasy. Now, if the destruction of the immortal Emperor clan is also related to Lin Sun, then the meaning is different. After all, in the current world, who doesn't know that because of Lin Sun, the 10-clan war alliance has long broken with the Yuan sect? And the immortal Emperor clans in the 7th heaven have long surrendered to the 10-clan war alliance. If Lin Sun has the intention to retaliate for any immortal Emperor clan in the 7th heaven, it will be an unpredictable disaster. The 10-clan war alliance responded very quickly. Almost as soon as they received the news, they sent forces to the 7th heaven to investigate. But as time passed, they didn't find any trace of Lin Sun at all. This made the immortal Emperor clans in the 7th heaven puzzled. Could it be that the culprit who destroyed the Hong family wasn't Lin Sun? But no matter what, this matter still caused turmoil in the 7th heaven. For a long time, all the immortal Emperor clans were in danger. The culprit who destroyed the Hong family was naturally Lin Sun. However, on the same day, he left the 7th heaven and decided to go to the 6th heaven. Because compared to the 7th heaven, there are many people he cares about in the 6th heaven. For example, the Luo family. Of course, there are also many unavenged enemies in the 6th heaven that Lin Sun hasn't taken revenge on. He would never forget how his enemies had tried to stop him and hunt him down from the Great Thousand Battles realm all the way to the 6th heaven of the eternal true world. This time, it's time to carry out a thorough settlement. More updates. There's so few guaranteed monthly tickets. Chapter 3005. In the 6th heaven, there were 36 divine lands. Every single divine land was vaster and vaster than a large world. Almost all the immortal Emperor clans in the 6th heaven controlled the territory of a state. Some top immortal Emperor clans even controlled more than 2 divine lands. 2 days later, Chaos Demon Sea, Southern Sea Divine Island. Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air, but when he arrived at the entrance of the Mi Luo Wonderland, he found that the entrance had been severely damaged. Did the enemy already find this place? His heart tightened, and he flashed in. Inside the Mi Luo Wonderland, it was like a world of ruins. There were scenes of collapse and destruction everywhere. This was originally the place where Master Lu lived. He once founded the Mi Luo Wonderland here. Later, the Luo family moved here. But now this place was destroyed. Lin Sun's black eyes were deep, and his divine sense spread out. After a while, Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief. Although the Mi Luo Wonderland was destroyed, there was no blood, no traces of fierce battle, and naturally no corpses. This made Lin Sun instantly judge that when the enemy found this place, the Luo family members and Master Lu had already evacuated one step in advance. My parents and Master Lu should have already gone to the Aurora Cave. Lin Sun remembered that Master Lu once said that if there was any danger, they would use an ancient transmission array to leave and go to the Aurora Cave, one of the 3 forbidden areas of Chaos Demon Sea. There is a forbidden area in the Aurora Cave. As long as one hid in it, even a transcendent realm existence would find it extremely difficult to enter. After a few hours, Lin Sun arrived near the Aurora Cave. Countless gorgeous and resplendent beams of light crisscrossed above the vast black sea, and they formed a dense mass that completely enveloped the heavens and the earth. Those were the aurora of Tao, full of deadly threats. Once a cultivator under the immortal realm rushed into it, he would definitely die. Even heavenly longevity realm and nirvana realm existences had to be careful when entering. However, all of this was naturally not a problem for Lin Sun. His figure flickered and instantly turned into a ray of light, sweeping into it. All along the way, auroras fluttered about, and they were multicolored. Some were long and narrow arcs, some were winding like lines, and some were sharp like spears. Every single aurora was filled with a strange, unfathomable, and dangerous aura, and every single one of them was different. However, in the eyes of existences like Lin Sun, these extremely dangerous auroras were rare and precious materials for refining weapons that could be used to refine immortal Taoist weapons. Along the way, Lin Sun collected a lot of extremely special auroras. Some were full of amazing corrosive breath, some were extremely fierce, sharper than divine swords, and some were full of terrible, burning breath, of course. Lin Sun also encountered many dangers on the way. Several times, he had to use all his strength to resolve the sudden danger. Even he was in such a state. If other transcendent realm existences were to come, they would definitely be in great trouble and danger. After flying for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, suddenly, the outline of a gray world appeared in Lin's spiritual awareness. That world was surrounded by dense auroras of the Great Way, like light ribbons, which turned into a layer of extremely dangerous world barrier. Lin Sun stood there and stared for a moment. He couldn't help but wonder how Master Lu discovered such a world. He was sure that his parents and the Luo family members were in it. After thinking for a moment, Lin Sun stepped into that world. Clatter, the power of the world order pressed against Lin Sun like a tide. But before it touched Lin Sun, it was dissolved by the immortal law around him. Lin Sun couldn't get close to it at all. This was the power of refining 60% of nirvana order, which was comparable to the power of God level. It seemed that the power of order that maintained the operation of a world couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. Soon, a vast and primitive world appeared in Lin Sun's vision. He took a deep breath, restrained his breath to the extreme, and walked in it with his hands behind his back. Gradually, he saw a series of buildings built on a green and flat field, with a big river flowing on one side. There were fairy birds fluttering in the air, making a string of loud and clear cries. Among the ancient trees, white deer and green cattle walked leisurely. All kinds of exotic flowers and grasses were dotted with picturesque scenery. Fight! 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 A loud shout rose to the sky. In a martial arts field, many seniors were practicing martial arts. All of them were full of heroic spirit, and their bodies were filled with strong fluctuations of power. On one side of the martial arts field, there stood a stalwart figure. His beard and hair were like halberds, and his face was handsome and resolute. It was Luo Qingheng. Obviously, he was teaching the younger generation of the Luo family to cultivate. Lin Sun stood in the distance for a moment, and then continued to move forward. From beginning to end, no one noticed his existence. When passing by a courtyard, Lin Sun saw that under an old tree in the courtyard, Luo Xiao, the patriarch, was drinking and chatting with some old people. They talked about some trivial things with a comfortable look and a hearty laugh from time to time. Lin Sun smiled and walked away quietly. On the way, he saw many familiar faces. Some were meditating, some were refining elixirs, some were playing chess, and some were sleeping. Every single one of their expressions revealed a relaxed, calm, and fulfilled expression. Soon, Lin's son stopped. On the bank of the lake in the distance, a woman was sitting in front of a cluster of flowers, sewing new clothes. Her soft and beautiful white face was full of concentration and tranquility. Gusts of wind from the lake blew, making her clothes flutter. Beside the woman, a man set up a bonfire and was roasting fish. Occasionally, he would take out a wine gourd and take a sip, and then squint his eyes and smack his lips comfortably. "Don't be busy. Come and taste the fish I roasted. It's very fresh and tender. It's best to eat it while it's hot." Soon, the man picked up the roasted fish and handed it to the woman's lips, saying with a smile. The woman didn't raise her head and said, "Wait for me to finish this dress." She was very focused and didn't even look at the fragrant roasted fish. The man said helplessly, "Qing Xuan, with Sun Er's current ability, does he still lack clothes to wear? What's more, you have helped him make hundreds of new clothes over the years. He can't wear them all at all." The woman said, "You don't understand." The man rolled his eyes and said, "If you don't eat it, I will throw this roasted fish away." Saying this, he pretended to throw it away. The woman stopped him and rolled her eyes. "How old are you? You're still so childish. If you're seen by others, they will laugh at you." Saying this, she took a bite of the roasted fish, and her beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed. "Delicious. I didn't expect that your cooking skills are getting better and better." The man said happily, "If you like it, I will cook for you for a lifetime." This is what you said. Don't go back on your words. The woman's eyes were full of affection. The man laughed. "When have I ever gone back on my words?" Looking at this scene from a distance, Lin Sun couldn't help smiling. He felt unprecedentedly full and calm in his heart. After a while, he quietly turned around and left. In a cave residence, Lu Boya was studying the Tao of Runes. He didn't notice that a pair of eyes had been silently watching him for a long time. "Wu Shuang, help me guard here in the years to come." Lin Sun stood outside the barrier of the world and said softly. Beside him, Wu Shuang, who was dressed in white, stood obediently like a pure and beautiful young girl. Hearing this, her big eyes were filled with tears as she said, "Master, Wu Shuang can't bear to part with you." Lin Sun smiled and knocked on Wu Shuang's forehead with his finger, saying, "You are the spirit of order. How can you cry? Don't pretend to be pitiful." Wu Shuang stammered, "Wu Shuang just can't bear to leave you, master." Lin Sun said, "Don't worry. After I get rid of those enemies, I will come back to take you away." Wu Shuang's eyes lit up and she said excitedly, "Really? Of course." Lin Sun nodded. Wu Shuang had now recovered 90% of her strength. She was even more powerful than those rare 9th-level orders. Lin Sun couldn't help but suspect that when Wu Shuang recovered to her peak state, she might be comparable to the power of a divine-level decoration. With her guarding here, Lin Sun would also feel very secure. "Take this jade talisman. There is a spiritual image of my will in it. When you're in danger, give it to Mr. Lu Boya." Lin Sun took out a jade talisman that he had prepared long ago and handed it to Wu Shuang. "Master, Wu Shuang will not let you down." Wu Shuang's voice was crisp and her expression was firm. Lin Sun rubbed her little head and said nothing more. He turned around and left. He had already met with his relatives and friends. Although he didn't recognize them or talk to them, he was already very satisfied. After watching his figure gradually leave, Wu Shuang's figure flashed and turned into an invisible force of order, disappearing in the vicinity of this Aurora world. 7 days later, the 6th heaven, Tianshui Divine Land. Many years ago, there were 3 immortal imperial families in the territory of Tianshui Divine Land. They were the Luo family, the Yao family, and the Ling family. Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. It was a first-class paradise in the territory of Tianshui Divine Land. This was originally the place where the Luo family was based, but since the Luo family moved away, Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain has been occupied by the immortal imperial family, the Yao family. A branch of the Yao family is now based in Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. The head of the Luo family branch is called Yao Zhangchong, and he's also an elder of the main branch of the Yao family. He has the cultivation of the Jew emperor ancestor. After all, the sixth heaven is far inferior to the seventh heaven, and it is far inferior to the eighth heaven. In the sixth heaven, the Yao family can only dominate the Tianshui divine land, far from the top forces such as the One family, Hung family, and He family. The power owned by the Yao family today is only slightly stronger than that of the Luo family, whose strength has declined to its lowest point. The Yao family originally had 4 supreme elders who embarked on the path of immortals. But many years ago, when the Yao and Ling families each dispatched 2 immortals and hundreds of emperor ancestors to attack the Luo family, 2 of the immortals died. Today, there are only 2 immortals left in the Yao family. The same is true for the Ling family. In the war that year, Lin Sun and Liu Boya cooperated and defeated the coalition of the 2 families. Their vitality was greatly damaged, and they haven't recovered until now. Today, Lin Sun's figure appeared in front of Dragon's Pine, Divine Mountain. Chapter 3006. Dragon's Pine, Divine Mountain. Looking at the rolling, majestic mountains, Lin Sun's eyes were filled with a trace of nostalgia. After helping the Luo family regain the power of the clan, he settled on the Jinjia Peak in Dragon's Pine, Divine Mountain. Back then, he was the Juetian emperor ancestor. Now, when he returned, he was already in the transcendent realm late stage. Things were different now. Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain was covered with the power of the Earth rank order, and there were also many restrictive arrays. But in Lin Sun's eyes, these methods were no longer worth mentioning. After a moment of silence, Lin Sun stepped forward. It could be said that before entering the eternal world, most of his enemies came from the sixth heaven. For example, in the Sky Water Divine Land, there were Yao family and Ling family. In other places of the sixth heaven, there were Wan, Hung, Zhu, He, and other immortal emperor clans. In those years, Lin Sun was in a difficult situation because of being hunted by them. Although he escaped danger many times, how could Lin Sun forget such hatred? If you don't kill a snake, you will be harmed. And Lin Sun's revenge also began on this day. Yao Zhangchong was meditating in seclusion. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable chill in his heart and opened his eyes. After that, he saw a tall figure was standing in front of him since an unknown period of time. Who are you? Why did you break into my Yao family's territory? Yao Zhangchong's face changed slightly. He suppressed the shock in his heart and calmed himself down. This is not your Yao family's territory. Lin Sun said casually, Now, I will give you a chance to live. Ask your Yao family patriarch, Yao Nanli, for help. Yao Zhangchong frowned. What do you mean? As he spoke, his cross-legged figure suddenly rushed out like a violent thunderbolt towards Lin Sun. Boom! Yao Zhangchong only felt like he hit an indestructible wall. His whole body was shocked and fell to the ground. His head was in a daze, and he saw stars. Lin Sun stood in the same place, motionless from beginning to end. His eyes were indifferent. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Boom! As soon as his voice fell, Yao Zhangchong's body exploded, turning into ashes and drifting in the air. It was just Juetian emperor ancestor. In Lin Sun's eyes, he could erase him with just a thought. He turned around and left Yao Zhangchong's room. At this time, Dragon's Pine Sacred Mountain was a chaotic scene. This is bad. Enemies have killed their way in, and the cultivation of the elders of the branch family has been crippled. The enemy is terrifying. Leave quickly. Quick! Ask the patriarch for help. The Yao family branch clansmen who were entrenched in various parts of Dragon's Pine, Divine Mountain, were panicking and fleeing like stray dogs. Shouts, screams, and roars also rang out one after another. Lin Sun did not pay attention to the chaos. With his hands behind his back, he strolled to the outside of Dragon's Pine Mountain. He did not go on a killing spree. Previously, he only destroyed the cultivation of those above the Emperor realm. From the beginning to the end, he only killed Yao Zhangchong. As for those small fries, he couldn't be bothered with them. It wasn't good to kill the innocent, but it was also too cruel to exterminate them all. Therefore, it was enough to eliminate the main culprit and uproot the foundation of the clan. However, Lin Sun also knew that to the immortal Emperor clan, his actions were 100 times crueler than exterminating them. When they were used to being high and mighty, falling into the abyss, that kind of blow was more painful than death. Without the power of the past, having fallen into the mundane world, they would be targeted by countless forces. There were those who took advantage of the situation. There were those who stepped on them, and those who opened their bloody mouths to bite them were definitely not few. This was the cruelest torture. When a Yao family's patriarch, Yao Nanli, arrived with a group of Yao family elders, they saw, in front of Dragon's Pine, Divine Mountain's gate, there was a lonely rocking chair. A young man was lying in the rocking chair, his left hand holding a wine gourd, his right hand lightly tapping on the back of the chair. Patriarch, this is the person who killed the elders of our branch family. A young man was furious, his eyes bloodshot. Yao Nanli's eyes were cold as she gazed into the distance. In truth, she was somewhat bewildered. After causing such a huge commotion, a person still dared to stay here in such a manner. This was undoubtedly very abnormal. May I ask your name? And why did you kill the Luo family branch family members? Yao Nanli spoke in a low voice. Her voice was like thunder, reverberating between heaven and earth. The atmosphere was solemn. A group of high-level figures of the Luo family was full of murderous intent. This time, Yao Nanli came with a group of top forces of the clan, including 2 remaining immortal existences, both of whom had reached the Nirvana realm. In the face of the pressure of the army, any cultivator of the 6th heaven would not be able to remain calm. But for Lin Sun, who was lying in the rocking chair, this kind of scene had long been ignored. He said absent-mindedly, "Is everyone here?" Yao Nanli's face darkened. "What do you mean?" Lin Sun said softly, "The most important thing for a family is to be neat and tidy, don't you think? Playing tricks." Suddenly, an old man in a black robe stood out, his body surging with the terrifying aura belonging to the Nirvana realm. "No matter who you are, if you dare to make trouble in my Yao family, you must die." As he said, he slapped Lin Sun across the air. Boom! A huge flame palm print condensed and crossed the sky. The terrifying power made the clouds collapse and the mountains and rivers tremble. In the rocking chair, Lin Sun did not move. But in front of him, a purple gourd rushed out. It spun in the void, and an illusory and ethereal green divine sword swept out. It was as lofty as the azure heavens. Puff! The giant flame palm was cut into 2 and collapsed like rain. The old man's face suddenly changed, and he activated a Taoist seal to resist. This was his Taoist weapon, which had been nurtured for 30,000 years. But with a deafening explosion, the Taoist seal burst into pieces and was forcibly split by the blue sword. Puff! The body of the old man in a black robe was split open, and blood splashed. As soon as his primordial spirit escaped, the sword flashed and killed his primordial spirit on the spot. This series of actions was done in one breath, and it was incredibly fast. When Yao Nanli and other big figures of the Yao family reacted, the old man in the Nirvana realm had been killed on the spot. This, Yao Nanli and others were all shocked, and their scalps were numb. They were stimulated by this bloody scene. How could they dare to imagine that the strongest existence in the Nirvana realm of their clan was killed by a sword? This was too horrible. Go! The other Nirvana god of the Yao family sensed that something was amiss and was about to lead everyone away. Lin Sun, who was in the rocking chair, said slowly, "Even if you leave now, where can you go? The northern Yuan Divine Mountain has been destroyed, and the Earth rank, 8th rank sequence energy that enveloped your Yao family has been taken away by me. You have nowhere to go." His voice was indifferent, but it clearly resounded throughout the world. At the same time that voice resounded, a strand of invisible and terrifying pressure silently swept out and covered the heavens and the earth, causing all the great figures of the Yao clan who were about to flee to stiffen, and in the next moment, all of them vanished from the sky. He fell and crashed heavily onto the ground. Even the powerful Nirvana God Realm cultivators were no exception. This scene caused all of them to be stunned on the spot, and their hearts were completely drowned by indescribable terror. "Who are you?" Yao Nanli's face turned pale as she shouted in a trembling voice. At this moment, Lin Sun got up from the rocking chair and said, "You don't even remember me?" At this moment, the Nirvana God realm existence seemed to have realized something, and his pupils dilated as he hissed, "He's Lin Sun." Lin Sun. This name seemed to have a magical power, making Yao Nanli and the others suddenly understand. But at the same time, they couldn't help but feel unspeakable shock and despair. It turned out to be him. Lin Sun looked indifferent. "Don't worry, everyone. Every debt has its debtor. I'm not a butcher who kills indiscriminately. Except for you, the other members of the Yao clan still have a chance to survive, but I can't guarantee that without the support of the Yao clan, these poor homeless people will suffer many tortures and disasters in the future." Yao Nanli roared fiercely. "Even if our Yao clan is destroyed, you can't escape. The 10-clan battle alliance will definitely cut you into pieces." Lin Sun smiled and said, "I returned to the 6th heaven this time to wait for the arrival of the 10-clan battle alliance. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the scene at that time." With that, he waved his sleeve. Boom! As if the sky was falling and the earth was sinking, the terrifying power of the Great Way spread. Yao Nanli and the other great figures of the Yao clan were instantly turned into flying ashes and dissipated in the air like burning weeds. Not far away, some of the juniors of the Yao clan who witnessed all this collapsed to the ground. Lin Sun picked up the wine gourd, took a sip of wine, and waited for a moment. Whoosh! Greenwood Taoist body moved from a very far distance. Lin Sun immediately learned that the northern Yuan Divine Mountain had been destroyed, and the nest of the Yao clan had been completely destroyed. The cultivation of other great figures of the Yao clan who occupied the nest and presided over the situation had been abolished by Greenwood Taoist body. Putting away Greenwood Taoist body, Lin Sun looked into the distance. This was just the beginning. In addition to the Yao clan, there was also the Ling clan in the Tianshui Divine Land. Just as Lin Sun was about to leave, he suddenly frowned and looked at a wilderness far away from Dragon's Pine Mountain. In his divine sense, he could see a figure madly rushing towards him from the wilderness. Lin Sun waited in place without moving, but he had seen the appearance of the man clearly. It was a man with disheveled hair, ragged clothes, haggard face, worse than a beggar on the street. He clearly sensed the fluctuations of the battle on Dragon's Pine Mountain and rushed towards Lin Sun crazily. As he ran, he let out a heart-wrenching cry. "Lin Sun! Lin Sun, is that you?" Lin Sun's pupil shrank. He finally recognized the identity of the abject man and couldn't help showing a look of disbelief. How could this guy become like this? He directly moved and appeared in front of the crazy abject man out of thin air. "Get out of my way! Don't block my way!" The abject man's eyes turned red, and he pushed Lin Sun. But he didn't push Lin Sun away. He looked up angrily, but when he saw Lin Sun's appearance clearly, he suddenly felt like being struck by lightning, and his eyes widened. "Lin Sun, it's really you." A hoarse cry came from his lips, and his eyes were red. Then, he sat on the ground and couldn't help crying. No one knew whether he was excited or sad. Since there was still time tonight, let's continue to update. Chapter 3007. Lin Sun's eyebrows gradually wrinkled as he looked at the miserable man who was wailing loudly. "Brother Peng, what's wrong with you?" He squatted down and asked softly. This man was Peng Tianxiang. He was the son of the Peng family of immortal emperors, a seed of infatuation with Duge Yuran. In the past, Peng Tianxiang was high-spirited and elegant. With the Peng family as his backer, he was supported and respected wherever he went. But now, he was haggard and disheveled. He was like a different person from the past. Lin Sun didn't even recognize it before. What kind of tragic experience did he have to go through to be able to torment a peerless figure to such an extent? After a long time, Peng Tianxiang stopped crying. He grabbed Lin Sun's sleeves tightly with both hands and said hurriedly, "Brother Lin, save my Peng family, save my Peng family." His hands were extremely tight, as if he was holding on to his only hope for fear that he would lose it if he loosened his fingers. "Calm down first and tell me slowly." Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder. His voice seemed to have the power to reach the heart, sweeping away the anxiety, fear, uneasiness, and tension in Peng Tianxiang's heart. His whole person gradually calmed down. "Brother Lin, I'm sorry." Peng Tianxiang's voice was bitter. Lin Sun said, "What do you mean? Tell me first what's going on." Peng Tianxiang took a few deep breaths, trying to calm himself down, and then told Lin Sun what happened. 18 years ago, the Ten Clan War Alliance announced to the outside world that it ordered all the forces in the world to arrest people related to Lin Sun. This matter caused a sensation in the entire Eternal World. At that time, the Sixth Heaven was also in an uproar. But Peng Tianxiang never expected that someone leaked the news of his friendship with Lin Sun, causing the Peng family to be targeted. That year, many immortal emperors in the Sixth Heaven heard the news and came, like sharks smelling blood, taking advantage of this matter to stir up trouble. Some wanted to invade the forces and territories controlled by the Peng family. Some wanted the wealth and cultivation resources accumulated by the Peng family over countless years. Some went even further and targeted the power of order of the Peng family. It could be said that the Peng family was like a fat sheep that was targeted by countless hungry wolves. Peng Tianxiang's father, the patriarch of the Peng clan, Peng Zhan, immediately sent Peng Tianxiang away and ordered him not to return. Furthermore, on that very day, Peng Zhan announced to the public that he had severed his relationship with Peng Tianxiang. From now on, Peng Tianxiang and the Peng family would have nothing to do with each other. This was to protect the entire Peng family. However, all of this did not dispel the thoughts of the immortal emperor clans that had set their sights on them. Instead, they became even more overbearing and declared that they would capture all of the Peng clan's clansmen and hand them over to the Ten Clans Battle Alliance. Under such circumstances, the Peng family had no choice but to reluctantly make concessions. They successively took out the forces, territory, and cultivation resources that the Peng family possessed in an attempt to spend money to avert disaster. However, it was destined to be like drinking poison to quench thirst. It was destined to be unable to satisfy the appetite of the undying emperor clans. Thus, in the following period of time, the undying emperor clans used all sorts of methods to make things difficult for the Peng clan. They used all sorts of methods to steal the Peng clan's remaining wealth. Seeing that everything the Peng clan had in the past was about to be divided up by the immortal emperor clans, the Yuan sect announced that anyone who made an enemy of Lin Sun would be the Yuan sect's mortal enemy. As soon as the news came out, the world was shocked. The undying emperor clans that saw the Peng clan as a meal also had some misgivings, and no longer dared to act as presumptuously as before. Originally, the Peng clan thought that this disaster would be over. But who would have thought that as time passed, the undying emperor clans became restless? On the surface, they no longer caused trouble for the Peng clan, but in the dark, they attacked them one after another. In those years, the Peng clan members distributed in the Sixth Heaven were all captured quietly. Almost all the members of the Peng clan had been captured quietly. As a result, the Peng clan members didn't even dare to take half a step out of their homes. Everyone was in a state of panic, and they didn't know when a calamity would truly befall them. After understanding this, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel gloomy, and his eyes were terrifyingly cold. This matter, after all, was caused by him, and Peng Tianxiang and the Peng clan behind him were innocently implicated, suffering an undeserved disaster. "Do you know what happened to the Peng clan members who were captured?" Lin Sun asked. Peng Tianxiang shook his head. "These years, I have been hiding in the vicinity of Dragon's Pine Mountain, not daring to show my face, so the information I can get is limited." Looking at his haggard and pale face, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel sad. How could he not know that Peng Tianxiang was worried about the safety of the Peng clan, so that he became so miserable? "You have been waiting for me here?" Lin Sun asked. Peng Tianxiang nodded and said in a hoarse voice, "Dragon's Pine Mountain is the territory of the Luo clan, but it was occupied by the Yao clan. So I believe that if you come back, you will definitely help the Luo clan take back Dragon's Pine Mountain." So I've been waiting for you here all these years. At the end of his words, he revealed a look of shame. Originally, this was a personal grudge of my Peng family, but I couldn't change all of this by myself. Among the people I could think of who could save my Peng family, only you, Brother Lin, could do it. So, before he finished his words, Lin Sun had already understood everything. He took a deep breath, stood up, and helped Peng Tianxiang up from the ground, and said with a serious look, "This matter started because of me. I must give your Peng clan an explanation." His voice was resolute, revealing a cold, murderous aura. If he hadn't decided to return to the sixth heaven this time, he couldn't imagine whether the Peng clan could still stand in the world in the future. "Brother Lin, thank you." Peng Tianxiang was so excited that his voice choked. In these past few years, he'd wandered about helplessly, despaired, terrified, and mentally and physically exhausted, and he'd even shown signs of going mad. But now, hope had finally arrived. Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder. "Brother Peng, lead the way. Let's go to the Peng clan immediately." Peng Tianxiang nodded fiercely. On the same day, Lin Sun left the Tianshui Divine Land with Peng Tianxiang. However, before leaving, Lin Sun had already ordered the body of Blackwater to go to the Ling clan, another immortal emperor clan in the Tianshui Divine Land. With the power of the body of Blackwater, destroying the Ling clan was a piece of cake. Azure Heaven's Divine Land. In the past, the Peng clan was the only ruler of the Azure Heaven's Divine Land. Their forces covered the entire state, and there were countless small forces under their command. In the entire sixth heaven, the Peng clan was second to none, enough to be on par with the Wan, Hung, He, Zhu, and other immortal emperor clans. However, since 18 years ago, the forces of the Peng clan had suffered a disastrous decline. Not only had the forces and territories under their command been annexed by their enemies, even the wealth that the clan had accumulated for countless years had been almost completely divided up by them. Everyone knows that if this continues, the Peng clan will be destroyed sooner or later. Tianyun Divine Mountain, the place where the Peng clan is located. On this day, in the clan hall of the Peng clan, Peng Zhan's face was gloomy and ugly, and his hair was standing on end. The faces of the other big shots of the Peng clan were also extremely pale. Your Peng clan should think carefully about whether those worldly possessions are more important or the lives of your clansmen. In the center of the hall, 3 figures stood, led by an old man in a green robe. His eyes were arrogant, and there was a hint of coldness in the corners of his mouth. They were from the One clan, and the old man in the green robe was called Wan Yongguei. They were here to discuss a deal with the Peng clan. One of the big shots of the Peng clan said angrily, 100 million eternal void source crystals for 19 immortal emperor clansmen. Your clan is really ruthless. After saying that, the big shots of the Peng clan felt a wave of sadness in their hearts. In the past, 100 million eternal void source crystals was nothing to the Peng clan, and they could easily take it out. But over the years, the Peng clan's wealth had been constantly devoured by the immortal emperor clans. In order to avoid the danger of extinction, they had to pay a very heavy price to avoid the disaster. Now, their wealth was almost depleted. 100 million eternal void source crystals was already a sky-high price for them. However, the old man in the green robe, Wen Yongguei, said with a smile, "If you don't have enough eternal void source crystals, you can use treasures to exchange. If you don't have enough treasures, you can also give up this Tianyun Divine Mountain. There will always be a way to solve this problem." "You want us to give up Tianyun Divine Mountain? Don't even think about it." Peng Zhan's eyes turned red as he said angrily, "I knew that your Wen clan has wild ambitions, but I didn't expect that you would still covet my Wen clan's foundation. You are simply insane." Wen Yongguei said indifferently, "Peng Zhan, anger can't solve the problem. You should know best that the Peng family is at the end of the road. In the sixth heaven, it's not just our one family that is eyeing the Tianyun Divine Mountain of your Peng family. Which immortal emperor clan doesn't want to occupy it?" After a pause, he continued, "If that's the case, why don't you give it to our Wen clan? Who knows? Our Wen clan might even give your Peng clan a way out for the sake of our past relationship." The atmosphere in the hall became more and more oppressive. Peng Zhan took a deep breath and said, I would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. My Peng clan would rather be destroyed than give up Tianyun Divine Mountain. When Yongguei sneered, You don't know what's good for you. In that case, let's wait and see. After saying that, he turned around and left with the other two. A big shot of the Peng clan couldn't help but say, Wait, what will it take for your clan to return the 19 members of my Peng clan? When Yongguei's expression was indifferent, there's no room for discussion, let alone 100 million eternal void source crystals, even if it's 1 billion or 10 billion. There's no room for discussion. As he spoke, he lifted his foot and walked out of the hall. Peng Zhan and the others' chests heaved. They were so angry that they were about to explode. They couldn't wait to rush forward and stop when Yongguei and the others. But in the end, they resisted the urge to do so. They were inferior. It was very likely to bring disaster to the Peng clan, which was already in a precarious situation. Peng Zhan and the others didn't doubt that if they captured Wen Yongguei, the Wen clan's army would arrive in a few days. At that time, how could the other immortal emperor clans not take the opportunity to attack? Once the situation developed to that point, the Peng clan would really be finished. At the same time, they knew that if this situation continued, the Peng clan would only become more and more embarrassed, and their situation would become more and more dangerous. But they couldn't care about anything else. They could only drag it out. Dragging it out for as long as they could. It was sad. It was also very hopeless. But the Peng clan was indeed at the end of the road. There was no other way. Bang! 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 Suddenly, 3 figures flew in from outside the hall like kites with their strings cut and tumbled to the ground. Peng Zhan and the other big shots were shocked. When they looked up, they saw that the figures that tumbled in were Wen Yongguei and the other 2 who had just left. This, Peng Zhan and the others' expressions changed. They were at a loss. At that moment, 2 figures walked in from outside the hall. One of the figures had yet to enter the hall, but he was already shouting excitedly, Father, your son is back. Added chapter sent. Chapter 3008. Peng Zhan's eyes widened, and he cried out, Tianxiang, why are you back? The other big shots of Peng family were also stunned. Plop. Peng Tianxiang knelt down with tears in his eyes. Father, uncles, and elders, our Peng family is saved. We are saved. His voice was like a roar, as if this was the only way to vent the anxiety, worry, and guilt that had accumulated in his heart for many years. Because this matter had arisen because of him. Peng Tianxiang never resented Lin's son for associating with him. He only hated himself for being so weak that he could only watch helplessly as his family was in trouble. What do you mean by saved? You are... Peng Zhan was confused. The bigwigs of Peng family all looked at Lin's son. Was this the reinforcement Tianxiang asked for? But he looked a little too young. Peng Tianxiang, you finally showed up. Suddenly, when Yongguei, who was rolling on the ground, shouted, Didn't your Peng family say that you have cut off all ties with him? But now he showed up. If the outside world knows about this, your Peng family will be exterminated. He staggered to his feet with a ferocious look on his face. Peng Zhan and the others all changed their expressions and looked at each other with heavy hearts. The disaster that Peng family suffered was caused by Peng Tianxiang. If he didn't show up, there would still be room for negotiation. But once he showed up, he would be the biggest weakness in the eyes of the enemies. With this excuse, the enemies would be the first to attack. Old bastard, you still dare to threaten me at this time? I will kill you. Peng Tianxiang glared angrily. He was just about to make a move when he was stopped by Peng Zhan, who said sternly, Tianxiang, don't be presumptuous. He was worried that Peng Tianxiang would cause trouble. Wen Yongguei sneered, Little bastard, you haven't seen the situation clearly yet. It doesn't matter if you lose your life, but do you want your Peng family to die with you? His words made the faces of the big shots of Peng family change. Father, Peng Tianxiang was anxious and wanted to explain. Peng Zhan interrupted. Quickly apologize to your Uncle Wen. Peng Tianxiang's eyes widened. Apologize to him? When Yongguei snorted, It's too late. Unless your Peng family can show enough sincerity today, Your Peng family can only wait to suffer. Peng Zhan and the rest's hearts sank. How could they not understand what Wen Yonggui meant by sincerity? It was clear that he was eyeing the Tianyun Divine Mountain again. But this was not the end. As Wen Yonggui spoke, he looked at Lin Sun with resentment. In this person, he must be skinned and torn into pieces. Before, when he and the other two strongmen of the one family left, they were stopped by Lin Sun and slapped back to this hall. This was absolutely a great humiliation to them. Peng Zhan was startled and said, "Tianxiang, this friend is?" Before Peng Tianxiang opened his mouth, Lin Sun cupped his hand slightly. "I'm Lin Sun. It's my honor to meet all the seniors here. This matter is caused by me after all, so let me solve it." He and Peng Tianxiang were of the same generation, so he naturally had to address Peng Tianxiang and the others as seniors. "Lin Sun," Peng Zhan exclaimed. The other great figures of the Peng family also trembled, revealing looks of disbelief. Wen Yonggui and the other two powerhouses of the one family were also stunned. It was as if this name contained a terrifying and boundless power, causing the entire hall to fall silent. Absolute silence. As the patriarch of a family, Peng Zhan had always been calm and collected, but at this moment, even he felt dumbfounded. At this time, Peng Tianxiang finally had a chance to speak. He immediately said, "Father, seniors, this is my good friend Lin Sun, the successor of Feng Siyuan, the vice pavilion master of Yuan's Sect Sky Pavilion." His words were like a clap of thunder, shaking the hearts of Peng Zhan and the other great figures of the Peng family. All of them showed an expression of helplessness. How could they not know what the name Lin Sun meant? He was the most dazzling and heaven-defying figure of the eternal true world, a terrifying existence regarded as the #1 enemy of the Ten-Clan War Alliance, and also the vice pavilion master of Yuan's sect, one of the 4 great ancestral halls. In front of him, even the immortal emperor clans of the 7th heaven had to lower their heads. At this time, the faces of Wen Yonggui and the others had already turned pale. Their bodies were trembling, and indescribable fear surged in their hearts. Many years ago, the Ten-Clan War Alliance had ordered the world to arrest everyone related to Lin Sun. But soon, Yuan's sect, one of the 4 great ancestral halls, also announced that anyone who was Lin Sun's enemy was the Yuan sect's mortal enemy. Under such circumstances, how could Wen Yonggui and the others not be afraid? Impossible. Lin Sun is wanted by the Ten-Clan War Alliance. How could he dare to appear in the 6th heaven? This must be fake. Beside Wen Yonggui, a powerhouse of the one family screamed and lost control of his emotions. This sentence made Wen Yonggui want to come back to his senses. He suddenly took a deep breath and said, "We have troubled you today. We will take our leave first. Goodbye." After saying that, he was about to leave. "Did I let you leave?" Lin Sun stood there without moving. His aura only slightly leaked out, and Wen Yonggui and the other two felt as if they were being oppressed by 100,000 mountains, and they knelt on the ground. Wen Yonggui shouted sternly, "What are you doing? Are you really going to be the enemy of our one family? Even if you are Lin Sun, are you not afraid of exposing your trace here and attracting the pursuit of the Ten-Clan War Alliance?" After a pause, he seemed to be ready to risk everything and glanced at Peng Zhan and others. "And you, don't think that Lin Sun's appearance can save you. When the power of the Ten-Clan War Alliance appears, your Peng family will only be destroyed faster." This made Peng Zhan and others' faces become ugly. "Are you done?" Lin Sun said indifferently. Wen Yonggui said coldly, "If you know what's good for you, you'd better let us go, otherwise, boom!" Before he could finish his sentence, his body exploded and turned into ashes that scattered everywhere. This scene shocked Peng Zhan and others. How could the Wen family let go of Wen Yonggui's death? "Do you have anything to say?" Lin Sun looked at the remaining 2 powerhouses of the one family. They shook their heads in fear. "Since there is nothing to say, you can die." Lin Sun's words were still floating, and the bodies of the 2 powerhouses of the one family also exploded together and disappeared. The 3 emperors of the one family were killed in this way. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun stood there without even moving a finger. Peng Zhan and the others stood there, feeling very happy in their hearts, but also very worried. Their expressions became gloomy and uncertain. Lin Sun saw through their thoughts at a glance and said, "I will give the Peng family an explanation for this matter." He turned around and walked out of the hall. "Brother Lin, where are you going?" Peng Tianxiang chased after him. "You stay at home and wait for the news," Lin Sun said, and his figure disappeared out of thin air. Peng Tianxiang murmured, "Brother Lin, in any case, take care of yourself." "Tianxiang, what the hell is going on?" In the hall, Peng Zhan's voice came. Peng Tianxiang turned around and walked into the hall. He saw Peng Zhan and other elders were all surprised and doubtful. Obviously, they hadn't recovered from the shock just now. Peng Tianxiang didn't hide anything and told them everything. "I see." Peng Zhan suddenly understood and sighed with emotion. "I didn't expect that such a supreme figure would still care about the friendship of the past. It's really surprising." Peng Tianxiang said, "Father, I can see that Lin Sun is also very guilty about what happened to our Peng family. You can't blame all the mistakes on him." Peng Zhan said without thinking, "Of course not. With Lin Sun, our Peng family will be saved, won't we?" An old man said excitedly. "But some people poured cold water. Don't forget that there is still the Ten Clan Fighting Alliance. Even if Lin Sun can help us vent our anger, once the power of the Ten Clan Fighting Alliance appears, our Peng family will still be in danger." His words made the atmosphere in the hall depressing. Peng Tianxiang hurriedly said, "On the way back, Lin Sun said that he would take all the clansmen of Peng family away after helping us solve the danger this time." "Leave? Where?" Peng Zhan was surprised. "To a place where even the Ten Clan Fighting Alliance can't threaten our safety." Peng Tianxiang said solemnly, "Is this true?" Those big shots of Peng family were all excited. 18 years had passed, and their Peng family had fallen into a desperate situation. If there was a safe place to live, who would be unwilling to leave? Peng Tianxiang said, "Elders with Lin Sun's current status. How could he lie about this?" Everyone suddenly laughed and nodded. Today, Lin Sun was an influential figure who could affect the general trend of the whole eternal world. How could he lie about what he promised? Someone hesitated and said, "It's just that many of our clansmen have been captured by those enemies." Before he finished speaking, Peng Tianxiang interrupted, "Lin Sun has just left. With his means, it is absolutely easy for him to rescue our clansmen. Let's just wait for the news." Peng Zhan said with relief, "Tianxiang, you have finally grown up. This time you have done the clan a great favor. When your cultivation is stronger in the future, the position of patriarch can be handed over to you." Peng Tianxiang's eyes were red, and he said, "Father, I used to be idle and waste my time, but from now on, I will cultivate diligently and not let you and the other elders down." As he spoke, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. When the big shots saw this, their emotions were in turmoil. "Get up. Our Peng family has been implicated because of you, but it may be a blessing in disguise. With your friendship with Lin Sun, you will be the patriarch of Peng family in the future. You will definitely be reborn and reach a higher level." Peng Zhan said and helped Peng Tianxiang up. When they heard Peng Zhan's words, the other big shots were also shocked. Indeed, the current Lin Sun was so powerful and had such a high status that he could affect the trend of the world. He was not only the successor of Feng Si Yuan, but also the deputy pavilion leader of the Yuan Church, one of the 4 great ancestral halls. Being able to befriend such a legendary figure was enough to change the fate of any clan. "Father, let's talk about the future in the future. I only know that our Peng family is saved this time, and Lin Sun is our great benefactor. I can repay this kindness for the rest of my life." Peng Tianxiang said seriously with a solemn expression. Peng Zhan and the others nodded secretly, feeling gratified. Knowing how to repay kindness was the character of the Peng family's children. Chapter 3009. In the 6th heaven, the territory where the Wen family was located was the closest to the Azure Divine Land where the Peng family was located. Because of this, The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. In the past 18 years, the territory and power that the Peng family lost were mostly occupied by the Wen family. In the night, in the Cloud Water Divine Mountain, where the Wen family was located, a hall was brightly lit. Many important figures of the Wen clan were gathered here, happily drinking wine and eating delicacies. They were in a good mood. Big brother, if nothing goes wrong, the Peng family will only be able to hold on for another 3 years. We, the Wen family, have to work harder and try to snatch the Tianyin Divine Mountain from our hands. That way, the Azure Divine region will definitely become our Wen family's territory. Wen Xiaoyin, the second elder of the Wen family, raised his glass and laughed. Second brother, you have drunk too much. As the patriarch of the Wen family, Wen Taojing could still stay sober. However, a trace of pride still shone in his eyes. Over the past 18 years, the Wen clan's reputation had skyrocketed just by devouring the Peng clan's forces. They had seized a huge amount of wealth and cultivation resources, which made the Wen clan like a tiger that had grown wings. Their forces and territories had expanded dramatically. As Wen Xiaoyin said, as long as they swallowed the Tianyun Divine Mountain of the Peng family, the whole Azure Divine Land would be their world. Ha ha ha. Lin Sun probably didn't expect that because of him, our Wen family would take this opportunity to make a fortune. Someone laughed. At the mention of Lin Sun, there was a touch of coldness in Wen Taojing's eyes. Although this bastard is now a deputy leader of the Yuan sect, he has offended the Ting Clan War Alliance. He will definitely die in the future. Many years ago, the Wen family and Lin Sun became enemies, but in those previous actions against Lin Sun, they suffered a lot. This made them all hate Lin Sun to the bone. Yes, this little bastard will definitely die. Let's wait to hear the news of his death. When Wen Xiaoyin, the third elder, was raising his glass and talking with a smile, suddenly a sword light flashed. The rest of his words were suddenly stuck in his throat, and his eyes widened. Many big shots of the Wen family were horrified. In their vision, a bloodline appeared on Wen Xiaoyin's neck, and then the bloodline became bigger and bigger. Finally, his whole head fell to the ground, and a fountain of blood rose to the sky. Even his spirit was cut open. Waiting to hear the news of my death. I'm afraid you can't afford to wait. A faint voice came from the door. When this voice was heard, everyone was shocked. This was the lair of the Wen family, which was heavily guarded. Everyone was drinking happily, but suddenly a sword light flashed, and Wen Xiaoyin's head fell off. This scene was already frightening enough. Some of the maidservants almost screamed. Everyone turned around and saw a man in a white robe standing at the entrance with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were as deep as an abyss. Who was this person? Most people were shocked. In the sixth heaven, only a few people have seen Lin Sun. Although the Wen family hates Lin Sun to the bone, they may not be able to recognize him in person. Only the bodies of Patriarch Wen Taojing and the other old freaks shook while they revealed astounded expressions. And they revealed expressions of disbelief as if they'd seen a ghost. How dare you? Who are you to actually dare barge into my Wen family, to commit murder? Wen Taojing's wife, a beautiful and shrewd woman, stood up and reprimanded Lin Sun directly. As the wife of the patriarch, she didn't change her countenance in the face of such a shocking change. Instead, she still took out her courage and looked straight at Lin Sun coldly. Why not? Your Wen family is not a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. I can come and go as I please. Lin Sun said indifferently with his hands clasped behind his back. Young man, you may have great ability to break into my Wen family silently. However, it's no different from courting death for you to bully our Wen family alone. I've seen a lot of people like you who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I'll give you a chance to tell us who sent you, and we can give you a chance to atone for your sins. The wife of the patriarch said coldly. She was indeed courageous, and she had obviously experienced the ups and downs of the world and was knowledgeable. So instead of being afraid, she threatened Lin Sun. Atone for my sins? A sneer appeared on Lin Sun's lips. How do you want me to atone for my sins? When he spoke, When Tao Jing and other old monsters had completely recognized him. They were so scared that their bodies were stiff, their faces were pale, and big beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. They didn't even dare to breathe. And some people who hadn't figured out what was going on were also shocked and doubtful at the moment. They sensed that something was wrong. For example, the wife of the patriarch noticed that something was wrong, but she remained calm and said coldly, "I'm afraid you still don't know how powerful our family is. In the whole sixth heaven, our family can also rank in the top 5. In the past, those who offended our family didn't end well." Even though she spoke like this, her voice gradually became softer, because she noticed that the expressions of Wen Tao Jing and the other old freaks were suffused with panic and terror, and they were ceaselessly signaling her with their eyes. At this moment, she felt that something was wrong. Wen Tao Jing pays respect to Deputy Pavilion Head Lin. Wen Tao Jing suppressed the horror in his heart, stood up tremblingly, and saluted Lin's son. Deputy Pavilion Head Lin? Which Deputy Pavilion Head Lin? Some people were still in a daze. But some people suddenly understood and shouted, "It's him, Lin's son, Deputy Pavilion Head of Yuan Kong Pavilion of Yuan Sect." Lin's son. Although it was just 2 words, they were as heavy as a mountain, smashing hard on the hearts of everyone present. They stood up subconsciously and looked at Lin's son in horror with shock on their faces. "Is that Lin? Lin's son?" The face of the wife of the patriarch changed wildly. Her whole body was like a deflated ball, her teeth chattering, and her vision darkened. It was this peerless, fierce man. It was said that the 4 East royal families in the 7th heaven were all destroyed by him. You are the patriarch of the one family. You must know very well that the hatred between your family and me has long been irreconcilable. Why do you still salute me at this time?" Lin Sun looked at Wen Tao Jing, who had been bowing there. "Do you think this can help your Wen family resolve some hatred? In my opinion, all the grievances in this world can be resolved. For example, as long as Deputy Pavilion Head Lin makes a request, our Wen family will never frown as long as it is within our ability." Wen Tao Jing's face was stiff, and he barely squeezed out a smile. The young man in front of him was the existence who slaughtered the 4 East royal families. Compared with the 4 East royal families, their Wen family was nothing at all. "Really?" Lin's son smiled faintly. Wen Tao Jing's heart trembled. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and said, "As long as Deputy Pavilion Head Lin can be magnanimous, we will agree to any condition. Release the clansmen of the Peng family you have captured." Lin's son said casually. Wen Tao Jing finally understood why Lin's son came to him today. It turned out that Lin's son came to support the Peng family. Yes, Wen Tao Jing readily agreed. This was not a problem at all. "Hand over your lives," Lin's son said again. Wen Tao Jing suddenly froze there, and big beads of sweat fell into his eyes. He didn't dare to wipe it at all. He just said in a trembling voice, "Deputy Pavilion Head Lin, even if you want all the wealth of our Wen family, I will agree, but if I lose my life," Lin Sun said, "I said this not to discuss with you. Whether you agree or not, no one here today will walk out of this hall alive." "Lin Sun, don't go too far," a man shouted angrily. Clang! The green gourd hanging on Lin Sun's waist swept out, and a sword chi cut out, killing the man on the spot. Blood spilled on the ground. Deputy Pavilion Head Lin, is there really no room for negotiation? Wen Tao Jing's eyes were red. We're the old ancestors. Why didn't they come out to save us? Wen Tao Jing's wife screamed. Lin Sun smiled and waved his sleeve. 3 bloody heads rolled on the ground. "You mean them? They are 1 step ahead of you." Wen Tao Jing and the others were completely dumbfounded. The 3 heads belonged to the 3 supreme elders of the one family, who were all old people at the immortal level. But now they had all been killed. All of a sudden, they all collapsed on the chairs as if they had lost their pillar of support. Wen Tao Jing looked even more lost. He murmured, "God wants to kill my Wen family. God wants to kill my Wen family." Lin Sun said coldly, "It's not God who wants to kill you, but me. Remember this." Swish! A purple sword ejected from the green gourd and turned into a long rainbow, whistling and spinning in the hall. In a flash, it returned to Lin Sun. All the Wen family members froze there, their faces full of horror. Puff! The next moment, the heads of Wen Tao Jing and the others rolled to the ground, and blood sprayed out from their necks like a fountain. It was as bloody as a painting. When Lin Sun walked out of the Cloud Water Divine Mountain, where the Wen family was located, the monstrous fire quickly burned up, engulfing the magnificent mountain range. The Wen family, an immortal emperor clan that had stood in the sixth heaven for countless years, was trampled by Lin Sun. Of course, just like the Yao family, Lin Sun didn't kill them all. He just killed all the old guys above the emperor ancestor realm and destroyed all the cultivation of the emperors. As for those innocent maids and squires, they had already fled in panic before the destruction of the Cloud Water Divine Mountain. In the distance, Lin Sun looked at the raging fire in the distance with his hands behind his back. His black eyes were calm. Not long after, he turned and left. The Wen family had collapsed, and its foundation was completely uprooted. Even if there were still survivors in the world, they were destined to become fat sheep in the eyes of other forces. What awaited them was to hit them when they were down and become food on the plate to be divided by other forces. Looking at the current situation of the Peng family, Lin Sun knew that the Wen family was doomed to have no hope of turning over today. Destroying the Wen family was just the beginning for Lin Sun. It was not only the Wen family who attacked the Peng family in the past 18 years. The Wen family alone could never push the Peng family to such a point. After all, the Peng family was a top force in the past. Since this matter started because of me, it should end with me. No one can escape this reckoning. Lin Sun looked up at the night in the distance. With a step, his figure instantly turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the vast sky. P.S. My good friend is getting married tomorrow. I'm going to help him tonight. Chapter 30:10. Under the sky, Lin Sun was moving. On the way back to the Peng family, Peng Tianxiang had given him a jade slip. The jade slip contained detailed information on all the Undying Emperor clans that had acted against the Peng clan in the past 18 years. At this moment, the message in the jade slip also emerged in Lin Sun's mind. The Kuan clan of the Undying Emperor clan is located in the Star Continent. There are 5 undying beings in the clan, and their leader is Kuan Yu Dao, Undying Emperor Clan Rui clan, located in the Flying Rainbow Divine Region. There are 4 undying beings in the clan leader Rui, Chenghua, Immortal Emperor Clan, Gong Clan. Information regarding the various Immortal Emperor clans appeared. Among them, there were some that Lin Sun was unfamiliar with, but there were also some that he was familiar with. For example, the Hung clan, He clan, and Zhu clan had invaded and annexed the territories and forces belonging to the Peng clan many times in the past 18 years. Lin Sun didn't care whether they knew each other or not. This time, it was because of him that he had to avenge Peng family. For him, this was also a form of intimidation. In the final analysis, the Peng family's misfortune is because many immortal forces in the sixth heaven think that they are backed by the Ten-Clan Battle Alliance and are not afraid of Lin Sun's revenge. What Lin Sun needed to do now was to use the bloodiest method to give these immortal emperor clans a good beating. If destroying the 4 Eastern Imperial clans wasn't enough, then he would just kill a few more. He would be able to kill until the Undying Emperor clan's hearts trembled and they would never dare to act rashly again. Whoosh! Before long, Lin Sun appeared in front of Tianyan Mountain. He waved his sleeve, and a group of Peng family members appeared out of thin air. They were all rescued by him from the Wen family. Go back and tell your patriarch that there will be many more Peng family members coming. Tell him to be prepared. After Lin Sun finished speaking, he broke through the air and left. On this day, the Peng family was in an uproar. The rescued Peng family members brought back the news of the Wen family's destruction, shocking Peng Zhan and the other big shots. Calculating the time, it was less than 6 hours from the time Lin Sun left Peng family to the destruction of Wen family. One must know that the Peng family was in the Azure Divine Land, which was thousands of miles away from the Cloud Water Divine Mountain, where the Wen family was. Deputy Pavilion Master Lin is truly a godly person, Peng Zhan exclaimed. The other old monsters of the Peng family were also excited. Seeing this scene, Hung Tianxiang's heart surged with indescribable pride, and he felt honored. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Under the sky, Lin Sun's 4 Tao forms, namely greenwood, platinum, red fire, and yellow earth, whizzed out and flew in different directions. This time, he had to deal with many immortal emperor clans. If he were to travel alone, he would definitely have to spend a lot of time. However, if he had his great Tao clone, he would be able to shorten the time by more than half. Seeing the 4 Tao figures disappear in the sky, Lin Sun's original body went straight to the place where the Hung family was. After half a day, Star Divine Land, Long Yuan Lake. This was the territory of the immortal emperor clan, the Kuan clan. At this time, most of the Kuan clan's upper echelons were gathered in the clan. Kuan Yu Dao sat at the head of the table. This shrewd and capable Kuan clan patriarch, who had always been known for his iron fist, was currently frowning and filled with worry. Patriarch, why have you gathered all of us here? A skinny old man said with slight dissatisfaction. This skinny old man is an immortal existence of the Kuan clan and also one of Kuan Yudeo's granduncle. He was originally in retreat, but he was ordered to attend the clan meeting. Therefore, he was a little displeased. Granduncle, I just heard news that the young man, who is now the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect, has returned. Kuan Yu Dao sighed. What? Lin Sun? The skinny old man was shocked. He sucked in a breath of cold air, and his expression changed. Patriarch, where did this news come from? Lin Sun has long been targeted by the Ten Clan Battle Alliance. These years, he has been holed up in the Yuan sect, not daring to go out. How could he have the courage to appear in the 6th heaven? What's more, such a big news, how could the entire 6th heaven not hear about it? Someone frowned and asked. Kuan Yudeo's eyes flickered. I just got news from an old friend. This old friend has been entrenched in the Tianshui divine country all year round. According to him, the forces of the Yao family entrenched in Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain were wiped out overnight. Even the Yao family's nest was trampled by someone. Everyone knows that Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain was originally the territory of the Luo family. Inferring from this, who else could it be other than Lin Sun? Only he has the power to destroy an entire clan by himself. Patriarch, has your old friend seen Lin Sun? Someone asked. Kuan Yu Dao shook his head. No. The skinny old man sighed in relief and said, so, the news is not necessarily true. Thinking about it, Lin Sun is being watched by the Ten Clan Battle Alliance. I'm afraid that as soon as he leaves the Yuan sect, he will suffer a destructive blow. How could he have the opportunity to appear in the 6th heaven silently? After a pause, he smiled and said, what's more, we have no enmity with Lin Sun. Even if he comes back, it won't affect us much. Others also laughed. But at this moment, it's true that you have no enmity with me. But you listen to the orders of the Ten Clan Battle Alliance and retaliate against the people related to me. How do you think this matter should be solved? In the indifferent voice, a figure appeared out of thin air. It was Lin Sun's green, wood Taoist body. Kuan Yu Dao and other big shots were shocked and stood up together. This was the core of their clan, but from beginning to end, they didn't know how the other party appeared. They didn't even notice a trace of him. A wave of boundless fear instantly filled their hearts, tightly gripping their hearts. Lin Sun, you really came back? Kuan Yudeo's face was ashen, and his lips trembled. They were still talking about this matter before, but they never thought that the unimaginably terrifying existence would appear like this. If I didn't come back, how would I know that you don't even put the Yuan sect in your eyes? Lin Sun said indifferently. The Yuan sect once announced that anyone who was Lin Sun's enemy was a mortal enemy. But obviously, neither the One clan nor the Kuan clan cared about this. In the name of working for the Ten Clan Battle Alliance, they constantly invaded and suppressed the Peng clan. Kuan Yu Dao was about to explain something, but his body silently turned into ashes and dissipated. Following that, the bodies of the other big shots present, regardless of their cultivation levels, turned into ashes and dissipated like pieces of paper that had been ignited. Lin Sun turned around and left. He didn't come to listen to explanations. Flying Rainbow Divine Land, Sun God Mountain. The Immortal Emperor Clan's Rue clan's territory. Rue Qingjue, the leader of the Rue clan, was discussing with a group of big shots in the clan about how to snatch the Peng clan's order power before the Peng clan fell. While the atmosphere was heated, Lin Sun's red fire Taoist body appeared out of thin air. With a wave of his sleeve, all the big shots, including Rue Qingjue, were killed on the spot. Wood Divine Land, Fengling Divine Mountain. The Immortal Emperor Clan's Gong clan's territory. Gong Tianhe, the leader of the Gong clan, was burning with anxiety. He shouted sternly, "Quick, evacuate all the clansmen." He had just received news that the One clan's territory in Cloud Water God Mountain had been uprooted and completely fallen. According to the news, it was very likely to be Lin Sun's doing. This made Gong Tianhe immediately realize the seriousness of the problem. He immediately issued an order to gather all the big shots of the clan and escape as soon as possible to avoid the limelight. "Don't you think it's too late to leave now?" A light voice sounded, and Lin Sun's yellow Taoist body appeared. Gong Tianhe's face instantly turned pale and translucent, devoid of blood. On this day, the Fengling Divine Mountain was destroyed, and the Gong clan of the Immortal Emperor clan fell. Juhua Divine Land, the place where the Hung clan was located, Wanlu Divine Land, the place where the He clan was located, Jinghua Divine Land. In just 3 days, Lin Sun and his clone moved together and destroyed 9 Immortal Emperor clans one after another. Among them, there were the One clan, Hung clan, He clan, Zhu clan, and other top immortal forces of the Sixth Heaven. There were also first-class forces like the Kuan clan, Rue clan, and Gong clan. As long as they had dealt with the Peng clan in the past 18 years, Lin Sun would not let them go. In just 3 days, the high-level figures of the 9 Immortal Emperor clans were all slaughtered. The cultivation bases of the emperors were destroyed, their sects were destroyed, and their foundations were uprooted. For the people of the Sixth Heaven, the 9 Immortal Emperor clans were like the heavens, and they could only look up to them. But after 3 days, the sky collapsed. For the current Lin Sun, destroying an Immortal Emperor clan couldn't be any easier. There was no need to destroy the entire clan. As long as he took away the power of order and killed the high-level figures, it would be enough. After 3 days of raiding the boundless territory, killing the 9 Immortal Emperor clans, and then leaving, his speed was so fast that the news didn't even have time to spread. However, it was foreseeable that in the next few days, the entire Sixth Heaven would be shaken. The first to be shaken was the Peng family. 3 days later, when Lin Sun brought back a group of rescued Peng family members, Patriarch Peng Zhan and the other big figures couldn't believe their eyes, until they heard Lin Sun casually say that the 9 Immortal Emperor clans had been destroyed from the world, and there was no chance to retaliate against the Peng family. Peng Zhan and the others were stunned, unable to recover for a long time. 3 days. The 9 Immortal Emperor clans were destroyed. Who could imagine that this was done by a single person? Even Peng Tianxiang was dumbfounded. Although he knew that Lin Sun was no longer what he used to be, those were just rumors, after all. But now, a series of things that happened in the past 3 days all prove how terrifying the power of his old friend is now. Thank you, Deputy Pavilion Master Lin. Our Peng family will never forget this great kindness for generations to come. After a long time, Peng Zhan, who recovered from his shock, bowed and said with a trembling voice, "Thank you, Deputy Pavilion Master Lin." The other big figures also followed suit and saluted. "You don't have to be so polite. This is what I should do," Lin Sun said. "What's more, the matter has not been solved yet. Please prepare early. 1 day later, I will take you to a safe place to settle down." Such a big movement happened in the Sixth Heaven. As long as the news of his appearance in this world is known, how can the power of the 10 Clan War Alliance sit still? A little later, Literature Hall. Chapter 30:11. In the Sixth Heaven, there are 36 divine continents, with hundreds of large and small Immortal Emperor clans. In addition to the Immortal Emperor clans, there are many academies, universities, sects, and other forces. And in these 3 days, Almost all the immortal emperor clans and major forces in the sixth heaven were in a state of frequent shock. Almost every once in a while, they would be shocked by the urgent news. More and more news gathered in their hands. The whole world was shocked. 9 immortal emperor clans were destroyed in one breath. Moreover, the situation of the destruction of the major clans was almost exactly the same. The upper echelons were killed, the emperor realm was abolished, the power of order was taken away, and their lair was destroyed. All these means prove that it was done by one person. Who the hell is it? How can he be so tyrannical and terrifying? Countless people were inwardly shaken, and they cried out crazily. The person who did this was decisive and ruthless. It was simply horrifying. The answer is easy to know, because although the 9 immortal emperor clans were destroyed, their clansmen were not killed. As the news spread more and more, a name began to appear one after another. Lin Sun, the heaven-defying character regarded as the #1 enemy of the 10-clan war alliance, appeared in the 6th heaven. At this time, even the stupidest person knows that something big has happened. An earth-shattering event. Lin Sun, the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect, the successor of Feng Siyuan, once killed all the way from the Great Kiliacosm battle domain to the 6th heaven, and also joined the Yuan sect as the #1. He once destroyed the top 4 Eastern Imperial clans of the 7th heaven and killed the 10 immortal giants in the Immortal Dao battle. Only such a terrifying existence could destroy 9 undying emperor clans in a short 3 days and be unstoppable. God, the 6th heaven is going to be in great turmoil because of this. Look at those immortal emperor clans that were destroyed. Which one didn't invade the territory and forces of the Peng family? If they hadn't fought against the Peng family, which was related to Lin Sun, in the name of serving the 10-clan war league, how could they have suffered such a catastrophe? In the past, the Yuan sect once announced that anyone who is an enemy of Lin Sun is a mortal enemy of the Yuan sect. However, the 9 immortal emperor clans probably didn't care about this at all, right? Countless discussions and uproars sounded in the major forces of the 6th heaven. Regardless of their cultivation level, they were all shocked. When people gradually calmed down from the shock, some major forces realized that Lin Sun's appearance this time would lead to a monstrous catastrophe. If Lin Sun keeps hiding in the Yuan sect, the 10-clan battle alliance won't be able to do anything to him for a while, but he has left the Yuan sect and appeared in the 6th heaven. This is undoubtedly putting himself in the most dangerous situation. Let's wait and see. As soon as the 10-clan war league gets the news, it will send its forces to give Lin the most fatal blow. As the deputy pavilion master of Yuan sect, Lin Sun can't be a stupid and reckless person. He appeared in the 6th heaven in such a high-profile manner this time. Does he have other intentions? Just as the 6th heaven was in an uproar, all the clansmen of the Peng family had been placed in a treasure and taken away from Tianyun's sacred mountain by Lin Sun's Greenwood Taoist body. But Lin Sun himself stayed. He is waiting. All his enemies in the 6th heaven have been thoroughly avenged by him one by one. When the news spreads, the 10-clan war league will definitely send people to deal with him. And Tianyun's sacred mountain, where the Peng family is located, is undoubtedly an extremely suitable place for fighting. 2 days later, the return of Greenwood Taoist body also let Lin Sun understand what happened. The entire Peng family has been successfully sent to the Aurora world in the depths of the Aurora Cave, one of the 3 forbidden areas of the Chaos Demon Sea. Greenwood Taoist body also met with Lu Boya and Luo Qingxuan and handed over the matter of settling the entire Peng family to Luo Xiao, the patriarch of the Luo family. The resolution of this matter made Lin Sun completely relaxed. Late at night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The night wind was blowing gently. On the top of a lonely peak in Tianyun Sacred Mountain, Lin Sun sat casually on the edge of the cliff with a wine gourd in his hand. His clothes were fluttering in the wind, making him look like a banished immortal. In another 20 years or so, Pavilion Master Yu Beihai will achieve the Eternal Tao. At that time, an unprecedented disaster will descend. Lin Sun pondered as he drank. This great calamity might appear in the Yuan Church, the Spirit Church, or even the Taiyu True Realm. But no matter what, their goal is to kill me. Lin Sun knew that his immortal supreme Tao path and the power of the divine order have made the eternal gods of the ninth heaven unable to sit still. These eternal gods may not appear, but they can command the 10 immortal giants, the Zen sect, and the witch sect to deal with him. Lin Sun is not afraid of this, but he can't tolerate such a disaster that will implicate too many people, such as the disciples of the Yuan sect and the senior brothers and sisters of the Fonsun Mountain. It can be said that he would rather bear all of this himself than let these people suffer any harm. Therefore, he decided to come to the sixth heaven. He wants to fight the enemy with his own strength. And from the day he appeared in the sixth heaven, the initiative has actually shifted to his hands. The enemy will never think that he would dare to appear in the sixth heaven alone in such a situation. As long as the enemy sends forces to deal with him, they will be led by the nose. Lin Sun is confident that unless the true body of the eternal realm appears, it is almost impossible to find a force in this world that can threaten his life. Under such circumstances, he can't wait for the enemy to send more forces, the better. Within 20 years, I will strive to reach the transcendent realm great perfection. At that time, it should be easier to deal with the eternal realm's will. After a long time, Lin Sun raised the wine gourd and took a big gulp. His abyss-like black eyes were filled with determination. On the 9th day after the destruction of the 9 immortal emperor clans, Tianlan Divine Land, the place where the immortal emperor clan's Zheng family is located. Early this morning, the Zheng family's patriarch, Zheng Wanhong, led a group of big figures of the clan to a vast plain. Then, they stood silently, occasionally looking at the sky. After a full hour, a roar suddenly sounded in the depths of the sky, and the space tumbled violently. Then, a group of dazzling and majestic figures appeared out of thin air. It was as if the gods had descended. "Welcome, my lords!" Zheng Wanhong and the other big figures of the Zheng family stiffened, then bowed in unison, with a look of awe from the bottom of their hearts. "No need to be so polite. Take us to the place where we will stay." In the sky, a majestic figure said in a deep voice, like the sonorous voice of the great Tao. "Yes." Zheng Wanyan solemnly accepted the order. He forcibly suppressed the anxiety and excitement in his heart and led the way with the other clansmen. In the 8th heaven, compared with the heavenly domain, the spiritual energy in the 6th heaven is too thin. I really don't know how the people in this world reach the immortal realm. The 6th heaven is not bad. The 1st heaven is simply a stinking pool. Not to mention reaching the immortal realm. Even reaching the Emperor Ancestor realm is very difficult. Why do you think Lin Sun chose to come to the 6th heaven? Does he really think that he can do whatever he wants with the potential of the Immortal Supreme? This child must have a plot. We have to investigate it carefully. The figures that descended like the gods conversed as they moved. They are all from the 8th heaven, a total of 10 people, each of whom is an old monster at the transcendent great perfection level. In the 6th heaven, they are absolutely supreme existences. The leader is an elder of the Wang family, named Wang Daoxing. He has a tall figure, a jade-like face, big sleeves, and a jasper ruler in his hand. The 9 people following him are from the other 9 immortal giants. Not long after, under the leadership of Zheng Wanhong, Wang Daoxing and the others arrived at the place where the Zheng family is located, Clumps of Clouds, Divine Mountain. Inside a large hall, Wang Daoxing sat on the central seat and asked casually, "How's the news?" The other 9 old monsters sitting on the seats on both sides also looked at Zheng Wanhong. Zheng Wanhong was very reserved. Hearing this, he quickly took out a jade slip and respectfully presented it with both hands. "My lord, everything that happened a few days ago is recorded in this jade slip." Wang Daoxing took the jade slip and flipped through it. His expression was calm and serious. The jade slip recorded the incident of Lin Sun appearing in the Tianshui Divine Land to deal with the Yao family and the Ling family. It also recorded the details of the 9 immortal emperor clans in succession a few days ago. Moreover, the grievances between the Peng family and the 9 immortal emperor clans in the past 18 years were recorded in detail. This allowed Wang Daoxing to quickly understand what Lin Sun did in the 6th heaven these days. He handed the jade slip in his hand to the other old monsters, then looked at Zheng Wanhong and said, "Have you found the whereabouts of Lin Sun?" Zheng Wanhong bowed his head and said, "Reporting to my lord, Lin Sun's whereabouts are elusive and terrifying. Even with the power of my clan, we can't find his whereabouts." An old monster snorted coldly. "Useless trash." Zheng Wanhong's heart trembled. He quickly bowed and apologized. "Senior, please forgive me. Don't panic. This time, I'm afraid we will stay in your Zheng family for a while. There are many things that need to be done," Wang Daoxing said softly. Zheng Wanhong hurriedly said, "It's a great honor for my Zheng family to be able to receive your presence. No matter what request you have, my Zheng family will go through water and tread on fire." Wang Daoxing nodded. "You can rest assured that if things go well, when we leave, we will not treat your Zheng family badly. Now, I have something I need you to do. Your Excellency, please instruct me," Zheng Wanhong said solemnly. "In the name of your Zheng family, release the news to the outside world that the power of the 10-clan war alliance has arrived in this world. Whoever can provide clues related to Lin Sun's whereabouts will get the friendship and reward of the 10 immortal giants," Wang Daoxing said in a deep voice. This sentence made Zheng Wanhong's face change. "In the name of the Zheng family? If this news is released, I'm afraid Lin Sun will hate me for the first time." "Why, is there a problem?" Wang Daoxing asked. Zheng Wanhong shivered all over. He secretly gritted his teeth and said firmly, "I will do it now." Literature Hall. Chapter 30:12. The power of the 10-clan war alliance has arrived in the world and is now entrenched in the Zheng family of the immortal emperor clan. The Zheng family announced that as long as anyone can provide clues about Lin Sun, they will get a big reward from the 10 immortal giants. When such news came out, the entire 6th heaven was completely boiling, and countless waves were set off. The revenge of the 10-clan war alliance has really come, but I don't know if Lin Sun is still in the 6th heaven now. Some people sighed. "I have a hunch that since Lin Sun appeared in the 6th heaven in broad daylight this time, it is impossible for him to leave so easily. In other words, it is very likely that he is going to wrestle with the 10-clan battle alliance in the 6th heaven." Some people analyzed. The Zheng family clearly stands on the side of the 10-clan war alliance. Aren't they worried about being retaliated? The 9 great immortal emperor clans that were destroyed are all examples of what happened. Some people were speechless, thinking that the Zheng family's move was destined to anger Lin Sun and provoke a great disaster. Oh, wrong. As long as Lin Sun dares to retaliate against the Zheng family, he will definitely be targeted by the 10-clan war alliance. In this way, Lin Sun is doomed to be doomed. This is an open and above-board plot. Let's see if Lin Sun really dares to go to the Zheng family. Some people thought that they had seen through the intentions of the 10-clan war alliance. And in this uproar and sensational situation, Lin Sun also got the news. On the same day, he released the news to the public. 3 days later, I will challenge the 10-clan war alliance to the Tianyin Divine Mountain. When people learned of this, they were all dumbfounded. Too strong. Who dared to imagine that Lin Sun would take the initiative to challenge the 10-clan war alliance without waiting for others to find him? This was simply domineering. Where does Lin Sun get the confidence to challenge the 10-clan war alliance like this? People couldn't understand. In the eyes of the cultivators of the 6th heaven, the 10-clan war alliance stands in the 8th heaven. Each of them can be regarded as a giant ruler, and their influence covers the entire eternal true world. Only a transcendent force like the 4 ancestral halls could resist it. Now, although Lin Sun is already a deputy pavilion master in the Yuan sect, although he has already stepped into the transcendent realm, although he has heaven-defying combat power, how can he fight against the 10-clan war alliance alone? Immortal Emperor Clan Zheng family. When they heard the news, Wang Daoxing and the other transcending great perfection experts were also surprised. This matter is quite strange. This kid arrived in the sixth heaven and seems to be waiting for a battle with us. Within a hall, a thin, crimson-robed, white-haired old man frowned. If it's like that, then this kid definitely has sufficient confidence in his ability to act so arrogantly. Mu Yongting, an undying giant, an old antique of the Mu clan. The others nodded without end when they heard this. Unlike the cultivators of the sixth heaven, they know how tyrannical and terrifying a young man like Lin Sun is. In just a short span of 10 years, he managed to ascend from the Nirvana realm initial stage to the Transcendent realm in one fell swoop in the 10 demonic territory. Even the deity level order was seized by him. Such a character with the potential of an immortal sovereign was enough to make any Transcendent realm existence fearful. I suspect that he is not alone. The other man, who had a resolute appearance and a cold expression, said in a deep voice. He was dressed in black armor. Zhu Kong, an undying giant, an elder of the Zhu clan. You suspect that this is a trap set up by the Yuan sect? Wang Daoxing frowned and asked. It should be so. Otherwise, with Lin Sun's cultivation, how could he dare to challenge us in such a domineering manner? Zhu Kong said coldly. Yes, in the past years, the Yuan sect couldn't wait to treat Lin Sun like a treasure. For him, the entire Yuan sect didn't even hesitate to shed all pretense of cordiality with the 10 undying giants. But now, Lin Sun suddenly appeared in the sixth heaven and didn't hesitate to reveal his whereabouts. It would be a joke to say that he doesn't have any helpers around him. The crimson-robed, white-haired Mu Yongting sneered. If it was just Lin Sun alone, it would be easy to capture him, but what you said is right. If he has helpers around him and has already set up a trap, then we have to be vigilant. A beautiful woman who was as charming as fire and had snow-white skin said in a soft voice. Qi Tingfang, an undying giant, an old antique of the Qi family. Wang Daoxing and the others also realized that there was something wrong with Lin Sun's challenge. After discussing for a long time, Wang Daoxing made a decision. Lin Sun came prepared, but aren't we the same? In the end, we still have to see what we can do. Since he challenged us to the Tianyan Path Mountain, we should go and see what this kid has up his sleeves. Everyone nodded. They also had many trump cards in their hands. As Transcendent Realm Great Perfection, they weren't afraid of some tricks. What's more, this was the sixth heaven, not the Yuan sect's ancestral court. Without the protection of the deity level order, even if Lin Sun had helpers around him, they wouldn't pose much of a threat to them. We'll set off today and head to the Tianyun Divine Mountain in advance. Wang Daoxing stood up and walked out of the hall. The other 9 antiques followed closely behind. However, their understanding of Lin Sun was still stuck at 55 years ago. They didn't know that on the way back to the Yuan sect from the 10 demonic territory, Lin Sun slaughtered a group of Transcendent Realm Great Perfection with his Transcendent Realm early stage cultivation. They also didn't know that Yuan sect's Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Xiu, and other deputy pavilion masters were all killed by Lin Sun alone. Naturally, they didn't know that in the past 55 years, Lin Sun's cultivation had already broken through to the Transcendent Realm late stage. Even the 7 deputy pavilion masters, including Xian Failing, were no longer a threat to him. Even Tai Xian's will and Dharma idol couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. Therefore, they didn't know that Lin Sun was acting alone this time. He didn't have any plans, plots, or helpers. The Tianyun Divine Mountain became the focus of the world attention. In less than a day's time, many experts from major forces had gathered here. Lin Sun's challenge to the 10-clan Battle Alliance was here. This affected the minds of the major forces in the world. This was also destined to be the most sensational battle in the history of the Sixth Heaven. In the past, a battle of this level had never been staged at all. As a result, before the date of the battle arrived, many cultivators had already gathered in the area near the Tianyun Divine Mountain. They were all densely packed, all of them coming to watch the battle. Among them were elders of the Immortal Emperor clan, as well as influential figures who travel the world. However, No matter how famous they were in the sixth heaven, how high their prestige, and how strong they were, in front of Lin Sun and the Ten Clan Battle Alliance, they were destined to be insignificant. They couldn't compete with the sun and the moon. In order to avoid being affected by the upcoming battle, these cultivators who came to watch the battle stood far away. Time passed bit by bit as they waited. On the morning of the third day of the battle, when dawn broke, the void in front of the Tianyun Divine Mountain suddenly fluctuated. One after another, majestic and dazzling figures appeared out of thin air. Just the power emanating from their bodies was enough to shake the world, causing the nearby mountains and rivers to tremble. The cultivators scattered in the nearby area all felt their knees go weak. Their minds were shaken, and their expressions couldn't help but change. They couldn't help but feel fear and awe. They subconsciously retreated a large distance away once again. Then, when they looked at the 10 majestic figures standing side by side in the distance, it was like seeing 10 suns lined up in the sky. It was enough to shock the world. 10 transcendent realm giants who have set foot on the immortal path. That kind of power is too terrifying. Why do I feel that if they wanted to kill me, I would be doomed eternally with just a thought or a glance? That kind of power is no different from a real god. It's far beyond our imagination. I'm afraid that I won't be able to touch that realm in this lifetime. Many people's hearts trembled, and they looked shocked. For most of them, it was the first time they had seen a transcendent realm great perfection. It was no different from witnessing a legendary figure descending to the world. The 10 great figures who arrived were naturally Wang Daoxing and the others. In their eyes, the dense crowd of spectators in the distance were simply like ants, and they were directly ignored by them. After they appeared, their eyes were already looking at the Tianyun Divine Mountain in the distance. Their expressions were indifferent, and their aura was circulating all over their bodies. It was as if they were gods overlooking the mortal world. Lin Sun, we've already come as promised. Why don't you show yourself? Wang Daoxing spoke indifferently. Every single word he spoke was like a thunderclap that rumbled and exploded beneath the sky. It shook the space to the point it fell into disorder. The layer of clouds collapsed, and terrifying divine might swept out, causing even the heavens and the earth to dim down. Many cultivators in the distance were seeing stars and coughed up blood. Some were directly struck to the point of being paralyzed on the ground, and it was so uncomfortable that they almost fainted. This wasn't intentional, but Wang Daoxing's imposing aura was too powerful. Even if they were extremely far away, and even if it wasn't directed at the spectators, they were still affected by it. Leave quickly. A power of this level isn't something we can observe at all. Leave quickly. The expressions of many cultivators in the distance changed, and they chose to leave at the first possible moment. They'd originally intended to watch the battle, but only now did they realize how laughable and ignorant they were. The strength possessed by such an existence that was like a god in the heavens wasn't something they could observe at all. Otherwise, their lives would be in danger. Just think about it. The imposing aura emanated from a single sentence had shaken many to the point they coughed up blood and fell to the ground. So, once the battle began, then how terrifying would the aftershock of the battle be? It was even to the extent that over 80% of the distant spectators had chosen to leave. Compared to watching the battle, preserving their lives was the most important. In the end, only some old men that had stepped foot onto the eternal path and some experts at the Imperial Ancestor realm hadn't left. But even then, these people were still prepared to leave at any moment. I've been waiting here for a long time. Along with an indifferent voice, a tall figure appeared out of thin air in the sky above Tianyun Divine Mountain. He had his hands behind his back, wore moon-white clothes, and his black hair fluttered while a green-skinned bottle gourd hung at his waist. He seemed solitary like an immortal, and he revealed an elegant bearing of standing aloof from the world. It was exactly Lin Sun. Chapter 30:13. With Lin Sun's appearance, Wang Daoxing and the others all locked their gazes on him. The atmosphere suddenly became oppressive. The spectators in the distance all held their breaths. They thought to themselves, Lin Sun actually dared to appear alone. Where did he get his confidence from? Just you, the red-robed, white-haired Mu Yongting said. His eyes shone with divine light, as if he wanted to see through the entire Tunyun divine mountain. I alone am more than enough to deal with you all, Lin Sun said indifferently. He could tell at a glance that these old antiques must have some doubts in their hearts. They didn't understand why he dared to take the risk alone. Hell, what arrogance! Deputy Pavilion Master Lin achieved success at a young age. You've ascended to the upper echelons of the Yuan sect and achieved the transcendent level. Do you think that you can ignore us just because you have the so-called immortal supreme potential? Qi Tingfang, a beautiful woman with a voluptuous body, said with a smile. Lin Sun took out the wine gourd and took a sip, saying, "Everyone, you're not here to chat with me, are you?" He was very relaxed and casual. Even in the face of 10 old antiques in the transcendent realm of great perfection, he didn't show a trace of fear. However, the more he acted like this, the more doubts Wang Daoxing and the others had. We're already here. Naturally, we won't be afraid of you. At this point, why don't we speak frankly? What do you think? Wang Daoxing said in a deep voice. Lin Sun put away the wine gourd and said, I really don't know what else to say at this moment. His seemingly casual, but actually domineering attitude made Wang Daoxing and the others frown. In a place far away, the spectators were already frightened. They were all sweating for Lin Sun. How dare he confront the power of the Ten Clan Battle Alliance like this? Was he really not afraid of being cut into pieces? Are you sure you want to fight us here with your own strength? Wearing black armor, Zhu Kong said coldly with a fierce expression. His voice was filled with monstrous, murderous intent. Yes. Lin Sun nodded. I really can't figure out why the Yuan sect has the heart to watch you come to the sixth heaven to die. Lin Sun, can you explain to me? Mu Yongting frowned. Lin Sun suddenly laughed. Everyone, you don't have to test me like this. There's no one here except me. What's more, I don't want to ask others for help just to deal with you. He paused for a moment, and then his gaze turned piercingly cold as he swept Wang Daoxing and the others. Now, do you understand? His words were incomparably domineering, and had the power to look down upon the mountains and rivers. Moreover, they carried an undisguised disdain towards these elders of the Ten Clans War Alliance. This caused the expressions of Wang Daoxing and the others to become much gloomier. However, their hearts were much calmer. They'd already sensed this expanse of mountains and rivers, and they really hadn't noticed any other forces lying in ambush. According to their inference, even if Lin Sun had a trump card, it was probably related to the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol, and they had their own ways to deal with it. If the heaven wants him dead, it will make him mad. Everyone, today let's kill Lin Sun in this sixth heaven and return peace to the world. Wang Daoxing made his decision. Clang! A thick and boundless ancient sword that was pitch black like ink surged into appearance behind him, and a sword howl surged through the heavens and the earth. Boom! The nearby void collapsed, and the mountains burst and collapsed like paper. It seemed that the heavens and the earth, the mountains and the rivers couldn't bear the aura of this ancient sword. That scene caused the distant spectators to feel a chill run down their spines. That's right. Mu Yongting, Zhu Kong, Qi Tingfang, and the others nodded, and overwhelming killing intent rushed out of their bodies. At this moment, the terrifying aura of the Great Way seemed to be on the verge of disrupting the world, causing the entire sky to fall into a kind of collapsing turbulence. The distant spectators couldn't stand still, and their faces turned pale with horror as they retreated even further away. It should have been like this a long time ago. The nonsense before was simply annoying. Lin Sun sighed softly. Go, tut, slash. Almost at the same time, the three elders, Wang Daoxing, Qi Tingfang, and Mu Yongting, made a move together, and each took out an ancient sword, a jade ruler, and a pagoda. The ancient sword flashed through the sky, crushing the land, and the sword intent pressed down like the sky. It was heavy and boundless, and when the immortal power of law spread, it reflected numerous incredible phenomena. Sword suppressing the sky. The jade ruler was as fast as a flowing light, like a snow-white thin line. It flashed out of thin air at an unbelievable speed and arrived in front of Lin Sun, ultimate formless ruler. The pagoda was in the shape of the 9 palaces, and it was divided into 9 layers, which transformed into 9 layers of divine lights of different colors. After it soared into the sky, it seemed as if 9 gates of purgatory had been opened, and terrifying great-way energies like wind, thunder, earth, fire, yin, and yang surged out. 9th realm, demonic pagoda. The 3 attacks all revealed the monstrous might of a transcendent realm, great perfection. Not to mention the experts of other realms. Even those in the same realm would have to avoid it. It was too terrifying. Undoubtedly, Wang Daoxing and the others weren't careless. They were worried that an unforeseen event would occur, so they didn't hold back at all. At the peak of Tianyan Mountain, Lin Sun's expression was calm. Facing such an attack, he only sent out 3 palms in succession. Clang! The first palm collided with the ultimate formless ruler. Divine radiance splashed, and destructive power spread. This divine weapon that had been nurtured for countless years was slapped to the point of being forcefully sent flying. Zukong's pupils constricted. Boom! The second palm strike seemed to have blasted apart the thick sky, and the sword insight condensed by the ancient sword collapsed and dispersed while the ancient sword itself trembled without end. Wang Daoxing frowned. Clang! With the third palm, the 9 realms demon domain pagoda seemed to be hit by the wind and rain. Countless light showers shattered, and the pagoda itself was shaken. Qi Tingfang let out a soft cry of surprise. The 3 palms happened almost instantaneously. In a head-on collision, the 3 antiques' divine weapons were smashed and sent flying one by one. This scene made the antiques who had not yet made a move reveal a strange expression. Transcendent realm late. It turns out that in just over 50 years, this kid has broken through from the transcendent realm early to the late. No wonder he dares to be so fearless. The antiques seemed to have understood. An indescribable feeling of jealousy surged in their hearts. In the 10 years in the 10 demonic territory, Lin Sun had gone from a nirvana god early to the transcendent realm. After more than 50 years, his cultivation had broken through to the transcendent realm late. This speed of advancement was so swift that it could simply be said to be unprecedented throughout the ages. So how could these old fellows not be envious? It should be known that among them, the least time to cultivate was tens of thousands of years, and the longest was hundreds of thousands of years. However, they were still stuck in the transcendent realm great perfection. Compared to Lin Sun's advancement speed, it was nothing. What surprised them the most was that not only was Lin Sun's advancement speed fast, but he was also able to withstand the attacks of the 3 antiques with his transcendent realm late cultivation. Such combat power was far beyond ordinary. It was also because of this that they finally understood why Lin Sun dared to challenge them in the 6th heaven. Everyone, it's better to attack together. Otherwise, you'll only lose faster. In the distance, when Lin Sun spoke, the figure that had been standing still suddenly moved. He took a step forward, and his aura suddenly changed. Boom! His body shone, and the immortal divine halo appeared behind him. The horrifying great past divine might turned into a huge abyss that swallowed the sky, as if it wanted to swallow everything in the world. Buzz! The abyssal sword cauldron emerged and rushed over with him. Let's attack together and finish the battle quickly. Wang Daoxing's eyes burst with divine light. He controlled the ancient sword and led everyone to rush forward. How terrifying would it be when 10 transcendent realm, great perfection existences attacked? At that moment, the world was completely in chaos. The Tianyan Divine Mountain, which was regarded as a first-class paradise in the 6th heaven, collapsed, unable to withstand such terrifying power. The spectators in the distance felt a stabbing pain in their eyes, and their minds were shaken. Not to mention watching the battle, they couldn't even see what was happening on the battlefield. For a time, only the rumbling sound of the great path resounded in this world. On the battlefield, Lin Sun, who was besieged, was surrounded by enemies from all directions. Various Tao soldiers wrapped in dazzling and blazing divine brilliance released a turbulent torrent of power. The sky and the earth were drowned by the terrifying, murderous intent. There was no way to escape, and there was no way to avoid. If it were anyone else, they would have already given up all hope. However, Lin Sun was not suppressed. In other words, from the moment the battle began, he did not dodge at all. Instead, he chose to face it head-on and displayed his cultivation. As early as in the Yuan sect, the 7 deputy pavilion masters besieged him together, but they couldn't do anything to him. Now, even if it were the 10 old antiques of the 10-clan battle alliance, they could only do the same. It was just that there were 3 more of them. The number of opponents would only play a key role in a situation where the opponent was evenly matched. Unfortunately, this was destined to not be an evenly matched battle. It was also destined that the number of opponents would become irrelevant. In a flash, clang! An ancient sword was shaken to the point of buzzing and trembling. Wang Daoxing's figure swayed, and his qi and blood were in turmoil. He was so uncomfortable that he almost coughed up blood. His expression immediately changed. How is this possible? Almost at the same time, Lin Sun urged the sword cauldron to resolve the nearby attacks one by one. It was not strenuous at all. On the contrary, it seemed extremely easy. This made the old antique's expressions change. They had all used their full strength without reservation, but they couldn't suppress Lin Sun at all. On the contrary, when they fought with Lin Sun, their aura was shaken to the point that they felt great pressure and showed signs of being suppressed. Kill! 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 Each of them was ruthless, and their divine might was vast. They were like burning suns. In the battlefield, they exerted all the techniques they had mastered. Such power could easily kill someone in the same realm. It could be said to be the pinnacle power under the eternal realm in the world. But even under such a siege, they still couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. Along with the passage of time, all of their expressions were heavy, ashen, and bewildered. Although Lin Sun was alone and only had transcendent realm late cultivation, he gave them a feeling that he was unshakable and indestructible. This was too unbelievable. It had completely exceeded all their expectations and imagination. Originally, they thought that Lin Sun had asked for help here, which was why he dared to declare war against them without fear. But now, they deeply realized that they had guessed wrong. With just the power that Lin Sun had mastered, these old antiques felt that they were unable to move him. How terrifying was this? Chapter 30:14. Lin Sun's heaven-defying combat strength caused the expressions of the 10 seniors to change, and they realized that the situation was far from good. At the same time, they thought of the same thing, the power of the immortal supreme being. The power Lin Sun showed now was no different from that of the supreme on the immortal way. Boom! Suddenly, the situation of the battle changed. Lin Sun broke the siege in one fell swoop, activated the sword cauldron, and heavily injured a senior. This old antique was a transcendent realm great perfection of the Qi clan. His name was Qi Liujia, and he wielded a pair of giant axes. However, at this moment, his body was almost split apart by the sword cauldron, and blood sprayed from his mouth and nose while his entire body was blasted flying. This sudden scene caused the hearts of all the other seniors to feel cold. 10 people joined hands, but Lin Sun reversed the situation. Who would believe it if it was spread out? Dang! Qi Liujia was shaken back. Lin Sun was like a trapped dragon rising to the sky. With a wave of his fist, he smashed away Qi Tingfang's formless ruler. The latter trembled and coughed up blood. At the same time, the joint attacks of the other old geezers were obliterated and dealt with by the eternal laws that Lin Sun emanated. Everyone, it's best to use your trump cards as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to use them later. In the battle, Lin Sun's voice was calm. Wang Daoxing and others looked at each other with fierce eyes. They almost launched a desperate attack on Lin Sun. However, all of this was destined to be futile. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't hurt Lin Sun at all. On the contrary, some of them were constantly injured in the battle. Some were shaken and coughed up blood. Some were cut by the sword qi. Some were broken by the fist. and some, there were many more. On the other hand, Lin Sun's aura surged like a rainbow. He was like a sovereign lord rampaging about, and every single one of his attacks was so oppressive that the old-timers had no choice but to go all out to deal with them. This caused the eyes of Wang Daoxing and the others to almost split apart from rage, and they were unable to accept all of this. Lin Sun's combat power completely overturned all their previous judgments and estimates. They had never expected that Lin Sun could be so powerful, as if he was invincible. Seeing that Lin Sun was unstoppable and was about to completely suppress them, Wang Daoxing finally let out a loud shout. Activate! Instantly, a golden scroll unfurled in the void. Boom! In an instant, a Dharma idol appeared. It was an old man who was as imposing as a god. His hair was snow white, and there was a sword-shaped symbol between his brows. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked like a legendary sword god. At this moment, the heavens and the earth fell silent. The terrifying and boundless eternal realm aura was like a landslide and a tsunami, causing all living things to lose their color and all living beings to fall silent. It was as if the 9 heavens and 10 earths had surrendered at its feet. That level of power was too terrifying. Senior, please take action and capture this fiend. Wang Daoxing cupped his fists in greeting. The other seniors revealed excited expressions as well. This came from a legendary figure in the 9th heaven, an eternal existence with the title of Heavenly Sword God, Song Jiansheng. A transcendent late realm youngster has rendered all of you helpless. Is the disciple that old man Cutie has been waiting for so long really so heaven-defying? Song Jiansheng's Dharma idol sighed lightly. The sword symbol at the center of his brows revolved while sword chi surged throughout his entire body, and an eternal pressure covered the heavens and the earth, causing Wang Daoxing and the other seniors to feel waves of terror in their hearts. Of course, there's also shame. After fighting for so long, they were not only helpless, but also injured. Looking at Lin Sun, he was unscathed and his clothes were spotless. Such a comparison showed the superiority and inferiority. Young man, since you dare to appear here alone, you must have a life-saving means. Now, I will give you a chance to display your life-saving means. Song Jiansheng looked at Lin Sun and said indifferently, in the future, even if old man Pewdie knows that it is I who captured his proudest disciple, he will never slander me for bullying the weak. These words caused Wang Daoxing and the others to be unable to help but feel like they were looking up to a lofty mountain. Life-saving means? Lin Sun sneered. Old guy, do you really think that you can do whatever you want with your Dharma idol? Song Jiansheng raised his eyebrows, and his eyes became cold. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. He stretched out a hand. Boom! A strict sword formation appeared, like a cage of the Great Way, filled with the coercion belonging to the eternal realm. Even the rules of heaven and earth were distorted and changed at this moment. So strong, Wang Daoxing and others trembled. Even old antiques like them rarely saw the eternal realm's Dharma idol in action. Lin Sun's figure flashed, and the sword cauldron soared into the air, suddenly shining brightly in the void. Boom! The strict sword formation, like a cage of the Great Way, was broken by the abyssal sword cauldron, turning into a rain of light that poured all over the sky. This, Wang Daoxing and others were shocked. Their pupils dilated in disbelief. The power of the eternal realm's Dharma idol was enough to easily kill any transcendent realm existence. This was a well-known fact. But now, this iron law recognized throughout the ages was broken by Lin Sun. Song Jiansheng couldn't help but be surprised. Divine light surged in his eyes, and he nodded. What an immortal supreme way! It is indeed an unprecedented great way. As he spoke, his sleeves fluttered, and the sword-shaped symbol between his eyebrows suddenly swept out, turning into a strangely shaped, sharp, and dazzling divine sword in the void. At this moment, Wang Daoxing and other old antiques felt a sharp pain as if their minds were being torn apart. This sword chi was so strong that it made their hair stand on end, and they felt a suffocating threat. Go! Song Jiansheng waved his sleeves. The dazzling divine sword slashed out fiercely. It was like a light that cut through the sky. The light was indescribable, and its power was indescribable. At the same time, Lin Sun's figure transformed. 5 Tao bodies whizzed out, and together with his original body, they violently rushed towards Song Jiansheng. Boom! An earth-shattering roar resounded. Song Jiansheng's sword was forcibly resisted by Lin Sun, and Song Jiansheng's original body and the 5 Tao bodies had already gathered to besiege Song Jiansheng. No matter if it was Song Jiansheng's main body or clone, both of them revealed unprecedented and extreme combat strength at this moment. They suddenly besieged Song Jiansheng and actually suppressed Song Jiansheng's will avatar, causing it to be unable to break free. Song Jiansheng was almost stunned. For an eternal realm existence like him, even if he used his Dharma idol, he could kill a transcendent realm expert with a flick of his finger. Even if he thought that Lin Sun's immortal supreme way was far beyond ordinary, he didn't take it seriously at all. Who would have thought that in just a moment, the power used by Lin Sun drowned his whole body? How could Song Jiansheng accept this sudden siege and bombardment? Open. His beard and hair were flying, and his robe was fluttering. The terrifying sword intent was fierce and incomparably powerful, full of mysterious and unpredictable eternal breath. However, even though the sword chi could easily crush any transcendent realm existence, it didn't include Lin Sun. Boom! With the attack, Lin Sun's original body and his 5 Tao bodies became more and more powerful, dissolving the sword chi into powder one by one. Song Jiansheng tried to break through several times, but he was severely suppressed by Lin Sun. This made him feel aggrieved. His face was blue, and his dignity seemed to be trampled and humiliated. He was completely angry. Before, he was still like a supreme dominator, teaching Lin Sun a lesson as a junior. But he never thought that Lin Sun, a junior, was so powerful that Lin Sun's Dharma idol could not break through like a trapped beast. Boom! An angry Song Jiansheng was undoubtedly terrifying. But as the battle continued, not only did he not break through, but he was also beaten by Lin Sun and his doppelganger. His willpower was rapidly consumed. In the distance, Wang Daoxing and others all widened their eyes as if they were struck by lightning. That was the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol. Now, it was beaten by young, transcendent realm late. If this spread to the 9th heaven, Song Jiansheng, the absolute sword god, would become the world's biggest laughingstock. For Wang Daoxing and the others, they felt a chill down their spine. At this moment, they further realized that if it weren't for the trump card they brought this time, with just the strength of the 10 of them, it was very likely that they would die in the 6th heaven. Lin Sun's combat power was too heaven-defying, and it couldn't be measured by common sense at all. Zhu Kong, hurry up and bring out the Dharma idol you brought with you, Wang Daoxing shouted. This time, they came with 2 eternal Dharma idols. One was owned by Song Jiansheng, a great figure of the Song family of the 9th heaven eternal god clan. The other was owned by Wan Jiugao, a great figure of the Wen family of the 9th heaven eternal god clan. Boom! Almost without delay, Zhu Kong brought out a cyan jade talisman. As the jade talisman exploded, a thin and tall figure appeared out of thin air. He was wearing a high hat and ancient clothes, with a thin appearance. It was the Eternal Realm Wan Jiugao's Dharma idol. When seeing Lin Sun and his doppelganger suppress Song Jiansheng's Dharma idol, Wan Jiugao couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, revealing a look of disbelief. Immediately, he made a move without hesitation. Boom! He took a step and came to the battlefield in an instant, waving his fist towards Lin Sun. A crystalline and resplendent green fist that was filled with an eternal aura that pressed forward with an indomitable will. It was simple, direct, and tyrannical to an unimaginable extent. However, at this moment, a loud laughter that shook the world came from Lin Sun's mouth. Old guy, I've been waiting for you to appear for a long time, so that we can close the net together. With that, Lin Sun suddenly exerted his innate supernatural power. Gate of Exile. Boom. It was as if the heavens and earth had been split apart. This entire world was swallowed up by a gigantic crack in time and space, and within the crack was a door that spanned 1,000 jong. It was as if an abyss that led to hell had been opened up, and as it appeared, it was as if the entire world had been swallowed up. Everyone only felt that their eyes were dark, and their hearts were filled with uncontrollable horror. Not good. Damn it. The Dharma idols of Tsang Jiansheng and Wen Jiugao were horrified and turned pale. As soon as they realized that something was wrong, they wanted to dodge. But how could Lin Sun let them do as they wished? He and his 5 doppelgangers attacked the 2 Eternal Realm Dharma idols with all their strength. No! Tsang Jiansheng and Wen Jiugao roared furiously. Their eyes were red, but because they were besieged by Lin Sun, they had no chance to dodge at all. They could only watch the Gate of Exile descend, then they and Lin Sun were all swallowed up 3 times in a row. Have a good weekend. Chapter 30:15. As early as the beginning of the battle, Lin Sun had expected that the enemy would come with a trump card, and this trump card must be related to the Eternal Realm's Dharma form. Therefore, whether it was fighting with Wang Daoxing and others, or fighting with Tsang Jiansheng's Dharma form, Lin Sun had been waiting for an opportunity to completely wipe out the opponent's trump card. Therefore, when Wen Jiugao appeared, Lin Sun did not hesitate to use the Gate of Exile. This caught the opponent off guard and engulfed the Dharma form of the 2 Eternal Realm figures in one fell swoop. When the Gate of Exile appeared, Wang Daoxing and other 10 old antiques were also affected. They retreated at the first time and tried their best to resist the terrible dragging force. Fortunately, when Lin Sun and the 2 Eternal Realm Dharma idols were fighting, they had already retreated far away and thus managed to escape unscathed. However, when they saw the Eternal Realm Dharma form of Tsang Jiansheng and Wen Jiugao were swallowed by the terrible space-time portal together with Lin Sun, Wang Daoxing and others were shocked and broke into a cold sweat. The Gate of Exile is a kind of forbidden divine ability of the Devouring Abyss. This boy used this divine ability to kill many powerful opponents a few years ago. Doesn't this mean that the Dharma form of the 2 seniors are, even though Wang Daoxing and others were used to seeing big scenes, they were still shocked by this scene? It was too horrifying. First, Tsang Jiansheng's Dharma form was suppressed by Lin Sun and his doppelganger, which was unacceptable. But when Wen Jiugao's Dharma form appeared, it was attacked by such a forbidden divine ability before it could show its true power. This was undoubtedly too horrible. Whoosh! In just a few breaths, Lin Sun's figure swept out of the Gate of Exile. Of course, he was the only one who could do that. The Dharma form of Tsang Jiansheng and Wen Jiugao had disappeared, or it was impossible for them to appear again in the future. Seeing this scene, Wang Daoxing and others, who were already in turmoil, felt cold all over and realized that something was wrong. Everyone, if you have any other means, just show them. Lin Sun's black hair fluttered, his cold eyes were like lightning, and his momentum became more and more terrible. As soon as he appeared, he stepped in the air and rushed towards Wang Daoxing and others. Go! Wang Daoxing immediately decided to retreat. Even the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol could do nothing to Lin Sun. Even if they risked their lives, it would be no different from hitting a stone with an egg. Seeing that they were about to leave, Lin Sun sneered, "I knew it would be like this." He pinched his fingers. Buzz! The nomological powers of heaven and earth quietly changed. Countless strands of the light of time interweaved and appeared, transforming into restrictive powers that covered this world. It trapped Wang Daoxing and the others who were about to flee. Time restriction. Wang Daoxing and others were experienced and knowledgeable. They instantly saw through Lin Sun's means, and their faces changed. Boom! They activated their treasures and attacked with all their might, trying to break the formation. But it was all in vain. Lin Sun's figure had already rushed into the space-time seal and began to kill. The abyssal sword cauldron soared through the air, heading straight for the nearest ancient artifact. Condense. He was from the Zhongli clan, and he was an extremely ruthless and decisive figure. At this moment, he had utilized a forbidden secret technique causing his entire body to be covered in black mist. Moreover, a scarlet-red shield of light had appeared in front of him. However, such a secret method was like a fragile eggshell in front of Lin Sun's sword cauldron and was flattened by a palm. Bang! The blood-red light shield shattered, and the billowing black mist exploded. No! A shrill howl came from inside, and then stopped abruptly. When the light rain dissipated, the void was in disorder. As for the Zhongli family's ancient artifact, he had already been killed by the sword cauldron, and his body and soul were smashed to pieces. The whole place was dead silent. A transcendent realm great perfection was killed by Lin Sun just like that. No one dared to believe it, but they had to. Wang Daoxing's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he shouted hoarsely, "Hurry up! Let's deal with him together!" Boom! The group of ancient artifacts rushed towards Lin Sun with all their might. They had tested it before, and it was impossible to break the time restriction with their strength alone. Under such circumstances, they could only fight with Lin Sun with all their might. Kill! Wang Daoxing's breath soared wildly, and his whole heart was filled with anger. He gnashed his teeth and said word by word, "I swear to sacrifice my life as the price to make up for the deficiency of heaven, in exchange for the punishment of killing the enemy." As his voice spread, every word he uttered flew out in the air, turned into a blood-red mark, and was imprinted on a heavy black Taoist sword in his hand. Suddenly, the black Taoist sword burst out a horrible, murderous aura, and the blade became as red as blood. There was no doubt that this was a forbidden secret method. Boom! After Wang Daoxing finished speaking, he fiercely slashed with the sword. The black Taoist sword shone with blood-red light, and ancient runes appeared on the hilt and blade. There were 9 of them, like the sword of judgment and blade of judgment from heaven. Crack! There seemed to be a blood-red light between heaven and earth, traversing the sky, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In the face of this sword, Lin Sun's eyes were emotionless, like an eternal abyss. He raised his hand, and his crystal-clear palm shone with the power of the immortal law. He clenched his hand into a fist, and then punched out. Boom! The power of this punch was simply unimaginable. Everyone only felt that the world was collapsing, the sun and the moon were inverted, and even the whole world seemed to be drawn by this punch. The incredible power gathered into an invincible light beam. Crack! The blood-red sword light of tens of meters collapsed as soon as it touched the punch. Like glass being smashed by a giant hammer, the punch instantly bombarded the heavy black Taoist sword with irresistible force. Clang! The black Taoist sword flew out of Lin Sun's hand, buzzing and wailing. In the end, the invincible punch directly penetrated Wang Daoxing's chest under his incredible gaze. How is this possible? Wang Daoxing still maintained the posture of slashing with the sword, but his eyes were full of disbelief. At this moment, Lin Sun was much stronger than when he fought with them just now, showing the invincible power of the Supreme Master. This undoubtedly proved that even when he was besieged by the 10 antiques, Lin Sun still held back his strength. It was also at this moment that he released his unprecedented combat power. Bang! The light in Wang Daoxing's eyes quickly dimmed and finally returned to silence. Then, the surging punch burst out of his body, causing his Taoist body to suddenly explode and vanish. With one punch, someone as powerful as Wang Daoxing was killed. As Wang Daoxing guessed before his death, Lin Sun didn't fully display his cultivation until now, because it was the stage of drawing the net, and there was no need to hold back. The other antiques felt cold in their hearts, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. The antiques of the Zhongli family were dead, and so was Wang Daoxing. This scene made them feel completely terrified. Lin Sun, who was in front of them, was like a supreme being. Each of his punches and kicks possessed unparalleled power. Kill! 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 Their eyes were bloodshot, and they seemed to be completely crazy. Their attacks became more and more terrifying, and they were completely desperate. Unfortunately, under the cover of the Seal of Time, all their attacks couldn't hurt Lin Sun at all. At that time, Even Xian failing and the other 6 deputy pavilion heads couldn't force Lin Sun to use his full strength, let alone these antiques among the 10 immortal giants. In terms of fighting strength, these antiques were inferior to Xian failing and the others. But at this time, Lin Sun didn't hold back at all. In a flash, 3 more antiques were killed on the spot. One was smashed into pieces by the abyssal sword cauldron, one was split in half by the Taoist sword, and the last one was killed by Lin Sun's palm print. It could be said that Lin Sun was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Go! Soon, the antique of the Jing family waved a 9-inch long black dagger with colorful light and stabbed at Lin Sun like a ghost. This stab had used all his strength. A sonic boom came from the tip of the dagger, and layers of curse-like vicious power appeared one after another, accompanied by an ancient and boundless incantation. Thorn of Curse. It was an extremely overbearing and vicious power of order. Any strong man, once stabbed by it, would be attacked by the curse. His mind and spirit would decay, and he would die. But under the shocked gaze of the Jing clan's old fogey, Lin Sun stretched out his right hand and directly grasped the black dagger. No matter how the curse power on the dagger burst out one after another and entangled Lin Sun's hand like a strange light, it could do nothing to Lin Sun. Even Lin Sun's palm didn't have scar. No matter how vicious and evil the order profundities in this world are, they can no longer harm me, Lin Sun said calmly. Then he exerted force in his palms and fingers, releasing the immortal rule that was refined with 60% of the Nirvana sequence power. With a loud bang, the order power contained within the black dagger was forcefully crushed. As Lin Sun pushed out with his right hand, the patriarch of the Jing clan tried to dodge, only to find that his body seemed to have been immobilized, and he couldn't move at all. He could only watch Lin Sun's palm pressing on his head. Puff! In the eyes of outsiders, the antique of Jing family was like a fixed puppet. After being hit by Lin Sun's palm, the antique exploded inch by inch from the top of his head. In the end, the antique was smashed into pieces and his soul disappeared. Then, Lin Sun attacked again. With great momentum, he attacked the remaining 4 antiques. Shrill screams rang out. Scalding blood splattered everywhere. In the Seal of Time, Qi Tingfang's snow-white neck was twisted off, and her plump and charming body exploded. Mu Yongting's head was smashed with a slap, and his spirit was smashed into pieces. One antique after another was killed in unwillingness, fear, and anger. When they were alive, they were as high and mighty as gods. They were supreme beings who could make other heavens tremble with a stamp of their feet. They had proved their Tao for countless years, and they looked down on the world. Hundreds of millions of living creatures could only prostrate themselves before their divine power. But now, they were all killed in the Seal of Time. In the billowing blood, the 10 antiques from the 10 immortal giants all died in the underworld. Only Lin Sun stood among them. He seemed to stand aloof from the world.